And as they become, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. Today, look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. And are not afraid to say it. And are not.
Yes, and I'm not afraid to say it. This is your boy, AJ Woodson. You're tuned into Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show. I think episode number 408, something like that. Still celebrating our 10-year anniversary. My boy Damon K. Jones will be with us in the second hour. We got a good show for you. This week is the last week to advertise in this issue, the next anniversary issue of the paper, Friday. So if you, all those who wanted to advertise and to have your ads in by Friday, February 27th, your ads and your checks, please, by Friday, September 27th, I believe is the date. And that's it. A couple of things going on. Shout out to Pete Rock. I think Pete Rock and Common, they got a new album that was nominated for a BET award. So shout out to them. What else is going on? Seems like New York City Mayor Eric Adams got a lot of things going on. His new commissioner that he just appointed, I believe, has been, I think he just stepped down, or the feds are coming after him. So I gotta keep you up on that for those who have been following. But there's a lot going on in his administration. Shout out to I needed Damon to be on with me in the intro. I know he has some things he wants to talk about, but he's not here. Yo, without further ado, you know what? We have our first interview, and that person is here. So we're going to get her on early. Ayanna Armstrong, she used to be a writer for Black Westchester, and she has a book out, and she has a story she wants to tell. I see her in the waiting room. I need her to put her camera on, and I know she's ready. Then, there she goes. We're about to bring her in right now. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Since you are here early, we're going to get you in early.
Okay.
So tell everybody who you are and why you're here.
So my name's Ayanna Armstrong, longtime resident of Mount Vernon, New York. And we met back in 2017, my senior year of high school. So today you invited me back on the show to just talk about to raise awareness about the address confidentiality program, and just talk about how I was trying to navigate that through the legal system and Mount Vernon Police Department. Okay.
So without further ado, let's get to it. But I want to say first, so I met this young lady. Damon and I did career day. I think they call it something else. And there was this one young lady who was asking us a lot of questions about journalism and criminal justice. And, she was really engaged. Then a couple of years later, a year or two later, I got a call from then City Court Judge Adrian Armstrong, who said, my daughter would like to write an article. So I'm like, cool. So she wrote a couple of articles. Then a couple of years later, this young lady reached out to me and told me she was writing a book and reminded me that she was the one doing I never knew that it was the same person all this time. So that's how we met. Yes.
All right.
So you have school, you graduated.
Yeah. Finished.
And also, before you do that, so you wrote a book. Talk about your book just briefly. Talk about the book.
Okay. So I'm an author of A New Hope for Justice, you know. So I wrote this book back in 2019, I would say like my sophomore to junior year of college. And basically it's about like criminal justice reform and the importance of this book. It also talks about like solutions to the problem. Most criminal justice books, I found that they just talk about the problem, but they don't offer solutions. So I feel like my book is kind of offers a more perspective and open-mindedness. And it also reminds people that you don't have to hold a government position in order to hold these agencies accountable. So I would definitely recommend. This is a good read. So
absolutely, and I'm quoted in the book, and
yes.
Kenneth Chamberlain. Chamberlain.
Yes.
Shout out to him because I know he's watching. He's in transit somewhere, but I know he's watching. So shout out. And Kenneth Chamberlain, I remember before when someone gave you a sweatshirt for me and you had it in your trunk for like 2-3 months. And you said, hey, they gave me the sweatshirt and I never saw you. They gave me a book for you that's autographed that I still have. And I just was going through my books and I just saw it. So next time I see you, I have to give you your book. Yes. So talk about why we're here today.
All right. So on July 23rd of this year, I went to the Mount Vernon Police Department to make a domestic incident report, just to report some violations of an order of protection against an individual that's in a different county that I had to relocate from. And I notified the reporting officer that I'm a part of the address confidentiality program. And then this is the card. I don't know if you can't really see it on the camera, but it's
now,
basically
what is that? Address what?
It's called the Address Confidentiality Program. So it was established in 2011 for domestic violence survivors and other victims of violent crimes. So this program grants individuals like myself to have a substituted address that's like located on the card. So it's like a PO box. So you don't have to use your protected address and, so the perpetrator doesn't know where you live or just anything like that. But when I got the report a couple of days later, or like on August 6th, when I got it from the records department about Vernon, I realized that my whole address was on the report and it was already faxed up to the county. And then it's in review of the district attorney's office. So it's already too late out there. So once I realized that, I alerted the mayor's office and I spoke with Director of Constituent Services, Eric Crump. And it was just like a 5-minute meeting, I kid you not. And then like he just took a copy of the domestic incident report and said that he'll do some investigative work and just see why that my address was put on the report. And also because I also inquired about like my mood that was also documented on the report, because the reporting officer put that my mood was nonchalant. And to me personally, I feel like that's a clear sense of insensitivity and disrespect to me as a Black woman who's a survivor of domestic violence. And I feel like you shouldn't have put that my mood is nonchalant. But basically, I've been dealing with this situation since July 23rd. And as you can see, I posted on my Instagram like a leaked email, but I redacted like the emails of the people that I spoke with. And basically they have no resolution as of right now. They haven't been communicating me. They're not trying to meet with me anymore.
Who's they?
The intern commissioner, Dave Gibson. I also spoke with Kendra David from the mayor's office, who said that she'll actually take lead on the case and figure out what's the delay with Eric Crump. I spoke with Captain Gregory Addison, Marcel Ollisers, Captain Michael Goldberg. So I met with like all the higher ups and no one is like taking this seriously. And it's just very concerning to me, especially the response to me asking for directed patrol after I actually told them in email, like, I've been sleeping in my car because I'm like fearing for my life because you guys breached my address, but you're not giving me the redacted version of the DIR report. You're not offering any protection. You're not doing anything. So that's basically where I'm at right now.
Okay, so what is your next step? What you have?
I feel like for next steps, like because when I posted that on Instagram, the mayor liked the post.
I saw she liked the post. Found that interesting.
But
Yeah.
she was aware of that of the situation since August 6th as well and hasn't really done anything regarding it. She just referred me to Kendra David, the chief of staff, back to Eric Crump and a couple other people that's in her office, but she hasn't been taking any lead on it. And it's actually very disappointing as we've actually met back in 2022. And she has a copy of my book as well.
Right. Because I know you did a couple of book signings. The Anti-Racism Alliance and all of them did
Yeah.
a virtual book signing for you, a book reading, author talk for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I was in on. I think you did one or two others. So what would you like the outcome to be? What are you fighting for, or what? You know.
I feel like overall, I just feel like I want justice, like,
So
referring to my book.
what does justice look like to you? That's a good question.
So I feel like I want a formal written apology first and foremost from the Mount Vernon Police Department because due to this situation, I feel like I've gained a lot of emotional distress. So I have increased anxiety now and depression, which now requires medication. And I want a timestamp of when the actual DIR report was redacted because they claim that it was redacted, but I have yet to see a timestamp of when it was actually redacted. And I want like a written steps that Mount Vernon Police Department will take to make sure that this won't happen to anyone else. Because when I met with the department chair and the deputy chief, Steven Sexton, he said that he'll implement training on the relevant laws about domestic violence within the police department. But how can they do that if they don't know about the program? Even the corporate counsel, Brian Johnson, didn't know about the program. I'm reading him the section of law that is from, and he just referred me back to the mayor's office, back to the director of constituent services, Eric Crump. And then I also want a written statement from the internal affairs unit pertaining to the conclusion of the investigation because I reported this formally on August 19th and today is September 22nd. And I was told that it would take 2 weeks by Captain Gregory Addison via email. So I haven't heard anything from them.
Okay. What is being done for the domestic violence part? Like, was the other person, was there order of protection? What was being done?
Yeah, so there is an order of protection already established, but it expires next week. That's why I've been trying to stay on it, but they just keep offering me meetings for next week when it expires. So, and they already leaked my address, so that's why my concern was too. I was just trying to meet with everybody, but they're not trying to meet with me anymore.
So you've reached out to everybody. Nobody's getting back to you. I didn't get a chance to talk to anybody ahead of time. And I'm sure, did you reach out to the district attorney's office?
Oh, yeah, they were present on August 29th when I had the meeting with Captain Gregory Addison, officers, and Captain Michael Goldman or Berg or one of those. But she said that they won't be investigating further. And I also received a letter in the mail saying that my concerns are going back to the internal affairs unit within Mount Vernon Police Department.
So first, the person violated the order of protection. Is that what?
Yeah, so I went to Mount Vernon PD to report it and have them fax it up to the county where the ongoing case is occurring.
You know, the Mount Vernon Department is currently under a DOJ investigation for civil rights violations, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you should try to contact them.
Oh, I did that already. I did that. I did that. Yep.
So what did happen with the DOJ? Did they respond back to you? Did you?
No, I just did like a formal complaint, but I also filed with the Attorney General's office, the Civil Law Division as well, and they got back to me this week actually. So that's a lead for right now. That's a lead right now.
Okay. Are they acting like they're going to do anything, or did they get back? They're looking into it, or what's going on with the AG's office?
I gave her like the important information, like a synopsis of everything that's been going on, the proof, everything. But she didn't know about the program either, which is also concerning to me. Like no one like really knows about this program for some reason. When domestic violence is like a serious issue, and I feel like so in the upcoming weeks, I'll be meeting with like the Westchester County Legislator office, like his staff, and I'm looking to implement statewide policy because that's what I kind of do for work. So regarding like ramifications for the ACP program, because in the law right now it just says like what the program does and what it's granted to do, but there's no legal repercussions if like for Mount Vernon Police Department when they violated the breach my address, there's no like consequences right now for that. So
Repercussions. Right. What is the program? I wanted to look it up. What's the program called again?
it's called the New York State Address Confidentiality Program.
Up, okay, right up. So it says shields the address of individuals who feel fear for their safety. You click on something for more information. That's all it says right there. And I'm looking at the New York State dos.ny.gov.
Yes, yes.
ACP. And it says that right there in the front, but it doesn't have anything for me to click on to find out more.
Oh, I can send you some information.
Okay, yeah, New York State Address Confidential Program, HCP. Pleased to announce that is valuable services now available to victims of kidnapping and reproductive health care services, employees, volunteer, patients, and immediate family members, right? Contact this number. If you're a victim of domestic violence, victim of stalking, victim of sexual offense, victim of human trafficking, victim of kidnapping, or are reproductive health care service providers, employee, volunteer, patients, or immediate family member of reproductive health care services provider, New York State Address Confidentiality Program can assist you in shielding your address. Once you are registered, participants are assigned a substitute address that they may use instead of their actual address. All state and local agencies are required to accept the substitute address. Any mail sent to the participant at the substitute address is processed by ACP staff and forwarded on a daily basis to the confidential location of the participant. The program is available, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So,
and it also states that like if a police department needs my protected address, they're supposed to get a waiver from the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State is supposed to do their due diligence to make sure that there's a bona fide need for my protected address. And if there is, and they have to sign the waiver, they get the waiver back. And then if this information of my protected address needs to be shared with another police department, the other police department also needs to fill out a waiver and get it signed by the Secretary of State, which both departments didn't do. And I know that for a fact that they didn't do that.
Well, as it said, and I'll read it again. It says all state and local agencies are required to accept the substitute address.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I want to be clear. So you're saying that the Mount Vernon Police Department, City Hall, the Corporation Council, et cetera, did not know about this program?
No, they didn't know about it. And then when I was talking
the high rate of domestic violence and rape accusations here in the city of Mount Vernon, how long has this program been in existence?
Since 2011.
So that's wow. So that's going back a few mayors. That's Ernie Davis, Richard Thomas. That's Ernie Davis, Clinton Young, Ernie Davis, Richard Thomas, and now Sean Patterson Howard.
Yeah.
The city doesn't know, and the police department does not know that this program
Even
exists?
the legal counsel is what threw me off. Like I'm reading him the law, and he's like, "Nah, I don't." He said, "I quote, I don't know nothing about that. You got to go back to the director of constituent services," and he held the door open for me to leave.
Wow. I like to not speak on things before talking to other people, but from what I'm hearing, this sounds kind of like a malpractice of public safety.
Yeah.
That the Mount Vernon Police Department does not know this program exists, and we're not talking about something that just went into existence
No.
this year, but has been in existence 2011, 21, 10, 13 years already. So
Yeah.
I didn't know about it. I learn something new every time I do an interview. When I learn, because I don't know none of this stuff. All the stuff we've learned. So I'm going to be looking into that. I'm quite sure that I'm going to hear from someone from the city
Yeah.
or the police department. I'm quite sure someone will
Yeah.
contact me after this airs, but I will reach out as well. I'm going to reach out to the corporation council and see what I can find out. I mean,
Okay.
so I can do on my end at this point. But so what would you like to see? So the order protection, how do you get your order protection renewed?
Well, the DA's office up there is handling it, so I feel like I should hear from them hopefully by
So this was
Monday.
outside of Westchester County, or this was?
Yes, outside of West. Yeah, that's why they had to fax it up to a different police department. Yeah, so it's outside of Westchester County.
So the police department where you used to live, were they contacted? Did they?
Yeah, I contacted them. I contacted the mayor up there. I tried to get in contact with the DA's office, but no one's trying to give me a copy of the redacted DIR report, because that's what they're claiming, that it's already redacted. And then I also met with someone else today who, I'm not going to disclose their personal information, but they're also having a similar issue with Mount Vernon Police Department. And I seen that she also had a DIR report and their information was redacted. So I'm confused on why my information is on there. Like, her thing is like, her whole address is redacted. It's just her name that's on there, and then the perpetrator.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm at a loss for words. I don't normally get at a loss for words, but I'm at a loss for words. And I wanted to, for those who didn't know, I'd like to have correct information. So the DOJ Justice Department has opened a pattern of practice investigation into the Mount Vernon Police Department. The investigation assesses whether the Mount Vernon Police Department engaged in pattern of practice of discriminatory policing. The investigation also assesses Mount Vernon Police Department use of force, stripping body cavity searches, and how it handles evidence. The department will conduct a comprehensive review of the Mount Vernon Police Department systems, accountability, including complaint intake, investigation, review, disposition, and discipline. SDNY and the Civil Rights Division will also reach out to community groups and members of the public to learn about their experiences with the Mount Vernon Police Department. We had done a story before, but for those who don't know, there are people that don't know. I wanted to read exactly what that was, so people know what we're talking about. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah. Last words. So people did comment and DM me like how they can help and advocate on my behalf. So I told them to tune in today just so I could tell them. So in my book, A New Hope for Justice, I talk about how social media is a powerful tool. So in order to advocate on my behalf, this is all I ask. On my Instagram profile at Ayana Writes, so AYANNA and then WRITES. I have 2 posts that are pinned to my profile pertaining to the Mount Vernon Police Department from September 11th and September 19th. And all you have to do is tag at MT Vernon Police and at Mayor SPH with the hashtag A New Hope for Justice. And just hopefully, it gains more traction, and then there'll be more let's see if they want to try to control the situation and actually resolve my issues. And then also I got a surprise for everyone that's watching, and also you, AJ, because you supported me since 2017.
Yes.
Everyone's been talking about when's the next book coming out, and I didn't really know what to write about, but now I think that in order in honor of my 6-year book anniversary coming up next year in November, I hope to release a second edition of my book, but it'll be more geared towards domestic violence awareness. So you heard it here first.
Can you see on the screen? I put that up, right? That's the Iana Wrights.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
That's it.
That is her Instagram. You can follow her there, contact her there to find out more, to see how you can get involved. And we will see if we can bring some more attention to the situation and maybe get some answers. And stay tuned.
Yes, stay tuned. And also, I have a link in my bio. I have a new website. So if you want to stay up to date on how, I advocate for marginalized voices in the community, you can sign up for my email listing. And then in the next month for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, you won't know the date, but if you sign up for the email listing, then you'll see whatever is on the website. So tune in for that as well. And thank you for having me on the show, AJ.
No problem. And how can people get your book, the one that's out right now?
It'll be on the link too. The link that's in my bio. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I wish you well. And hopefully we can maybe come back and do an update.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
Something has gone on with this, but I'm quite sure I will be hearing from the city of Mount Vernon and the Mount Vernon Police Department.
Yeah, you will.
When this airs. So. Thank you for tuning in, and I wish you well.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yes. You are tuned into Black Westchester. Black Westchester presents the People Before Politics radio show. That was our first guest, Anna Armstrong. And I actually have just learned about this program as well. But, this is not what I do. I feel like all police departments, it's at all local and county agencies should know about this. So we're going to ask some questions as we always do, and we're going to follow up and see what's up. So my next guest will be on shortly, probably in the next half an hour. We're going to be dealing with the AG's decision not to charge the officers involved in the killing of the New Rochelle Police Department officers involved in the killing of Jarrell Garris last year. He was shot July 3rd, 2023, and died of his injuries July 10th. And this week, the AG, 14 months later, just came back saying that she will not be pressing charges. We have on the website right now in Black Westchester, Blacks in Law Enforcement have responded. Kenneth Chamberlain has responded, and former County Legislator Damon Maher has responded and asked some really great questions, and he is going to join us around 7 o'clock, and we will be discussing that in great detail. Anybody tuned in right now, next 15, 20 minutes, you got any questions, comments, whatever, please hit us. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. We are simulcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram as well. Every Sunday, 6 to 8. It's this Black Westchester presents the People Before Politics radio show, celebrating our 10-year anniversary. Again, we're celebrating our anniversary over a couple of issues. The first issue was out already. Rod Benjamin on the cover. We attended the city celebrating him at Memorial Field, and gave out the newspaper, and he signed over 100 copies, the cover for the people that were there. It was great. The next issue comes out October 4th. The deadline to advertise is Friday, September 27th. And you can also make your donations and contributions as well. Hit us, blackwestchester@gmail.com. You can make a donation via Cash App, Zelle, Venmo, PayPal, all the usual ways. And we greatly appreciate all those who have made donations and contributions, who have supported, who have taken out ads, all those who have committed to taking out ads in this issue. Like I said, we've been doing this for 10 years, and we could not have done it without all of you. We greatly appreciate all of you and all of your support. What else is going on? I haven't really touched upon, and a lot of people have asked me, so I know everyone's heard about Diddy and his problems. We're not going to really go into that tonight, but he was arrested and he was denied bail, and he's being held in Brooklyn House of Detention up until his trial. And he's new videos are coming out every day of things he said before. People are coming out speaking, new lawsuits. I mean, it doesn't really look good. He is innocent until proven guilty, although of the charges that he is being charged with. But I will say he lost a lot of love from a lot of people when that video of Cassie surfaced. I mean, there's no denying that's not guilty before proven innocent. He whipped her behind, and he is on camera. You see it. He didn't deny that it was him. You visibly see it. And a lot of people who were trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, he lost a lot of support. What I noticed, and what a lot of people talk about, a lot of times when somebody big like that gets charged like this, and they've been allegedly doing this stuff for a long time, there's people that shield them. Usually you can identify when their problems started, and he was represented, I forgot the parent company, but they represented Ciroc, and he was, they owned it, and he was a spokesperson, I guess part owner or whatever. And he went against them and accused them of racism and had a lawsuit against them. And allegedly, when things came up, because he was making them so much money, they were blocking some of this stuff. And then he went and called them out and called them racist and all that. And that was the beginning of all the legal issues. All the stuff started surfacing. It seemed like it wasn't protected no more. If he's guilty of this, then he should definitely do the time. He should definitely be convicted. There's no excuse for none of this. There was no excuse. There's no excuses you can make up for what you saw in the Cassie video. I do pray for the children and the family members and any of the victims, because there are many victims. But I will say this: I watched a lot of legal analysts and lawyers who have spoke on the various shows and podcasts. This is far from over. The Feds, Homeland Security, they confiscated a lot of video because of these quote unquote freak-offs, as they're calling them, or as he called them. And there are other people that are involved, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing charges of other people, or other people are going to be called in to be testifying soon. So I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more of this coming in the coming days. We'll keep you informed. We really haven't done much writing on it yet, but we're following the situation. My partner Damon should be coming on as soon as possible. He should be joining us soon. What else is going on? Couple of stories that we had in the last week. Let's see. Going through. We have a great op-ed up by a young man from Yonkers. I suggest everybody read it. It's about My Brother's Keeper and his involvement in My Brother's Keeper, and it's good to hear from. I think he's he is now a freshman at Pace University. But when My Brother's Keeper started, his mom, suggested he get involved. And, there's a lot of kids that age. He felt like, oh, this is going to be extra work. And, you know what I mean? And he didn't really want to take the commitment. But his mother, I guess, kind of urged him. And he talks about when he finally joined and got involved and how a great experience has been in his life. It's a really good read. And everybody should check it out. It's called My Brother's Keeper Is Not Just Extra Work, It's a Life-Changing Opportunity by Cameron Williams. Everybody should just check that out. It's on the cover page of Black Westchester. As I said, there's we've been covering a couple of responses to the AG deciding not to press charges. Former County Legislator Damon Maher responds to her decision in the police shooting of Jarrell Garris, and he will be on tonight. Blacks in law enforcement have responded. Kenneth Chamberlain has responded, and all those responses are on the website as well. Let me know you tap in. Let me know you're checking us out. Give me a comment. Look at them. My text message is blowing up. Let me know you tuned in. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Again, okay. I'm sorry. I'm getting text messages at the same time. Let's see what else is going on. So two of our supporters, strong Black Westchester supporters, Paul, who's working with us with the 40 under 40, and Joan up in Portchester, they have kicked off an organization called Haitians for Harris. A group of Haitian Americans alarmed by the recent and unfounded attacks of Haitian immigrants in Springville, Ohio, have launched Haitians for Harris. The group joins several other self-identifying groups that have launched in support of the campaign of Vice President Kamala Harris, and as she seeks the presidency. There's a great article about that on there, and everybody should check that out. Check out that organization. What else is going on? What's going on? What other articles? Is anything else you want? Any questions you have for us? Anything that you want me to address? Please leave it in the comment section. Greatly appreciate you. Let me see. Damon has a couple of great articles in health and wellness that y'all need to check out. The Art of Listening, Nurturing Love Through Communication in the Digital Age. That's a good one. And there's a few others. Also, Mount Vernon School District records its highest graduation rate in decades. That's an article that's on there that you need to check out. What else we got here? What's the latest joints? Lanez Kinsley wrote an article on New York City Chancellor David Banks unveiling a bold vision for the future of New York City schools, building a foundation for inclusivity and innovation. That's a good read. We remember Omar Kareem, who has passed. We celebrate Legislator AJ Woodson Samuel turned 32, and he had a birthday party recently that we were in attendance. It was greatly attended. I think I talked about that a little bit last week. I see Damon is back. You ready to come on, brother?
Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings.
There you go,
everybody. I hope everybody can hear me. I was trying to get the light situation in my bedroom. I'm having a lot of construction done to my house, so it's like we're just like packed in the bedroom. So
yeah, I'm playing with my light situation too. I still don't got it the way I like it, but
so I had to get my light situation taken care of. So
try this side. Let's see if this
I
better.
can try to get it in. So I want to thank everybody that has tuned in on all the different platforms. We thank you for joining us every Sunday. And God willing, in 20 minutes we're gonna have a real discussion.
Yes.
A real honest discussion about Attorney General Tish James and her decision not to bring charges against this officer in New Rochelle. But I also going to take the time now to say that we have to, as taxpayers throughout Westchester County, there is not one major police department in Westchester County that did not have a questionable police shooting. Not one. Yonkers Police Department was already investigated by the Department of Justice. And they had to admit to a consent decree. But Black people dropped the ball to make sure that all those bullet points that the federal government said that Yonkers Police Department was supposed to do, that they didn't do. Mount Vernon Police Department right now is being investigated by the Department of Justice. People have the power to have their police department investigated. So when we have this conversation later, I hope that people are paying attention, because we're not saying that all cops are bad, but you could have good cops and bad management of police. You could have people in place, because remember, politics plays a role even how your community is policed. And sometimes people are in positions that should not be in the positions that they're in, because they might know somebody. Their pastor might be the big pastor in the community, or there's some people that donate money to the politicians and they want to get their friend a job. So we have to be very, very, very mindful on how politics works in the public safety of our community. See, and when we have incidents like these, we have killings like Jarrell Garris, Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., and others throughout Westchester, White Plains, Greenburgh, Yonkers, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, twice since
George Floyd, and that was supposed to be the pinnacle there. Like, everything was supposed to change after George Floyd. The New Rochelle Police Department.
But nothing changed under George Floyd. Not even, we'll get into that. Nothing has changed under George Floyd. Black communities just got rhetoric, but actually Nothing has changed. So, and this is why we have to understand. It's not on the politicians, it's on the people. Stop putting these goddamn people in office that's not going to do nothing for the community. And I'm not attacking any certain politician. I'm just saying we cannot continue to have. I've been talking about police oversight and the shooting of unarmed Black people for 25 years. 25 years. And nothing has changed for the better. Black people in Westchester are still getting shot at, and killed, whether they're unarmed or they're mentally ill. Now it's mentally ill because we have a mental crisis in our communities, and police are not the ones that need to be spawned because they end up killing them because they're not trained to deal with mental health crisis. And I don't understand how these mayors don't see it. And they don't put nothing in place. So when a family member calls the police or someone calls the police because someone's having a mental crisis, that they don't get killed. And I'll challenge any PBA president to come on the show. Because I could guarantee you your department is not trained in de-escalating mental crisis because they don't train police to do it. They were supposed to continue. They were supposed to put that in place in the Westchester County Police Academy. But what does that mean once you go to the local police department and there's no ongoing training and de-escalation of someone in a mental crisis? And there's not one police department that has an excuse. You know, y'all like to put down correction officers, but there's 800 officers and we are all trained in dealing with in one department. And we're all trained in dealing with de-escalation of mental crisis and mental supervision. And some of y'all barely got 100 cops in your department and you can't train them. 150, 160, and you can't train them. See, this is where the people have to put demands on the elected officials. And if the elected officials are not doing it, then they shouldn't be in office. Civilian complaint review boards is another one.
We had a comment on Instagram, said that this is because their priority is to protect their lives first above all.
Well, how are you protecting your life when somebody's unarmed? That's what I want to know. Well, how are you protecting your life when someone's unarmed? And you supposed see protecting your life and actual policies. And if the policies tell you not to do something, you can't use protecting your life as an excuse. And we all know you shouldn't shoot anyone that's unarmed. So what are you protecting your life from? The person don't have the gun. Someone explain that. If there's no gun, what are you protecting your life from?
And that's usually the excuse. They felt their life was in danger.
Yeah, because they have a racist mentality that we're some super Negro. We're super Negroes. So they have to use a gun against a black man because we're super Negroes. They want to give us this extra Hulk strength when they're dealing with us. And that has been the excuse ever since slavery, ever since the police department. Yes, super predators. Ever since the police department was created, we had some super strength when dealing with black people. But you can find situations, same situations with white people, and they use restraint. And that's facts. That's facts. And I want to give you an example. When they killed Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., when he barricaded his door and would not let the police in his house, which he had the right to, constitutional right to. And they ripped off the door, shot him with bean bags, then ultimately killed him. Around the same time, white man did the same thing in Stony Point, having a mental crisis, but he actually had fake guns and barricaded himself in the house.
Right.
And y'all could pull it up. And the police commissioner said, we used great restraint not to kill him. And the man, and they couldn't know if the man had fake guns or real guns. And they still didn't kill him. But that was a white man. Nothing has changed. Even with black commissioners, nothing has changed. And these mayors don't put people in place to change the actual culture of policing. They're just black faces in places without changing anything. And I can say this because I've been around for 25 years, been in law enforcement 33. But 25 years I've been talking policy, procedure, and training, and it seems, and accountability, and it seems like it's falling on deaf ears, especially with our black politicians. The question is, how many more people are supposed to die? And then y'all want to come around for our vote and smile and skin and grin while people are dying. Every death we say, this is the last one. This is the last one. We're going to learn from this mistake. And we don't. We don't. And I'm literally tired of talking about it.
They know we're going to get angry. We're going to make some noise. We're going to march a little bit. Might even tear some shit up for a minute. And then we're going to go back to normal. Everything's going to go back to business as usual.
Absolutely.
I drove by. We was distributing the papers. I don't know what, about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Drove by that where he got shot. Drove by the store where Jarrell came out. Business as usual. They doing business as usual. The normal, you know what I'm saying? You saw nothing there. It was just like, if you didn't know what happened, you would never know what happened. Everything was back to normal.
Right. And that's the problem. And that's the problem.
As Dixon said, 2 weeks and back to normal. Sometimes maybe a little longer, 2 weeks, but it's back to normal. There's protests. They might shut something down. They might, rally, march. I said, sometimes in some situations even tear some shit up. But nothing gets done. And, that's why we do these stories, to keep the names of these victims alive. Because if we didn't, you wouldn't hear about them anymore.
Not at all.
And we stand with the families in the fight for justice, and their fight for justice. So it's not just swept under the rug. Our guest is here. Are you ready to go? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go. Oh, he said 1 second, 1 second. Yeah, so we're about to get into this conversation. Like I said, it's funny because we had this conversation, and when talking to the family, you wanted to have some hope that they would the Attorney General was going to do the right thing, but you kind of expected what happened. And for it to take 14 months is unacceptable.
Right. But you know why they took 14 months?
Because he was worried about Trump.
Well, that too. They was worried about Trump, but they was trying to figure out how to pass it in a way that they wasn't going to do it. That's why it took 14 months. Because they didn't want people to see that they were incapable of giving justice or attempt at justice. That's why it took 14 months. They were trying to figure out how they could pass off not doing it.
So since she's been in office, and she was in office when Cuomo, Snyderman was in office when Cuomo made the Attorney General deal with any deaths in the hands of
she was in office.
Bottom line. So she hasn't brought charges on any officers as of yet, in any of the situations that have happened under her watch. Is that true? I don't know of any.
I don't know. I don't know her office going to trial with any questionable police shooting. I'm not sure. I haven't heard it.
Right.
And we damn sure had situations under her watch here in Westchester, and she hasn't done anything when it has come to questionable police actions or police crimes against taxpayers.
Right. She made recommendations. A lot of people spoke on that. There were recommendations made, and he says a recommendation indicates that there is a problem.
Right. But it's hard to make. See, here's the problem. It's hard to make recommendations when your office is in charge of the recommendations, right? And is Damon Maher? I want Damon Maher to be. Is he ready?
When you're ready, Damon, just give us a thumbs up, and then we'll put you on.
And
you ready? I think he said yes.
Mm-hmm. Hey, what's happening, Damon?
Welcome our guest, former County Legislator Damon Maher. Before I go in, I want to give him his props. When in both incident, Jarrell Garris, and what was the incident? Henderson, the one before.
The Vaccaro situation, the off-duty cop.
No, Henderson Clark's brother.
Oh, Kamal Flowers.
Yeah. One thing I heard about this individual here, he went. Now the cop stayed out of the projects area. It's not called the projects no more. That whole area, but he was in there by himself, meeting with the residents, speaking to the residents, getting their concerns, and it was like you didn't see any other many other elected officials, and he was there the whole time when they were outraged. And like I said, the cops wasn't even going up in there. They were kind of putting a border on the outside of it, but they wasn't really going in there. He was there. So, and I want to give you props on that because, everybody's not putting their money where their mouth is on situations like that.
Well, thank you, but I got to say a couple of times I was there as well with then City Council member Yadira Ramos Herbert, who's now our
Oh yeah,
mayor,
yes.
and she's a little different situation as mayor. It puts her in a difficult situation to take certain stands that are thought of as political, as opposed to somebody who's just a legislator, as I was. But I appreciate your words on that, and also want to congratulate you on the 10th anniversary of Black Westchester.
Thank you.
And I had a smile when you were mentioning Brenda Crump, because my wife and I were foster parents way back when we were, before I had the gray beard in the Westchester County system, and so we knew Brenda Crump from that era, and she certainly did a lot more in foster care as time went
she
by.
was an advocate. People don't even know her work that she did, and with foster care for children and advocating for the children's rights and all of that. She
just terrific, and then I ended up just connecting up with her a little bit some years later, because my sons were on the New Rochelle High School track team, and so she was big booster and supporter of the Mount Vernon team. So we'd see her up at the field up there.
You got another comment, compliment. Damon always spoke up for the hood and was in the hood, hooping and finding out the problems. He definitely
So the kids, I was really good against the 9 and 10 and 11-year-olds out there at Lincoln Park, who called me, old white guy. So they were calling me Larry Bird. And and I could see, some of these older kids were, not kid, your 19, 20-year-olds are sitting up there on the concrete, and they're starting to make bets, because they figure, they've all seen, White Man Can't Jump, and they thought I was some kind of hustler there. I was playing against the bigger kids then, but no, it's well, that's part of one of the themes that goes through what we're going to talk about, being in the community, and
shout out to Kwame Dixon, because he was out there
absolutely
as an advocate.
He
ran for city council, but he even without the title, he was out there representing the people and
well, I'm saying, sometimes without the title, it's easier for you to criticize and hopefully have some impact on change. I mean, so I just to kind of, I have like a 1.5 minute reading, all right, that I talked about, just sort of set the broader background on this, right? You printed the quote I had from Kamala Harris back before she was, when she was running for president the first time, and it didn't take off, right? But here's a quote from Angela Davis, right? How is it possible to solve the massive problem of racist state violence by calling upon individual police officers to bear the burden of that history, and to assume that by prosecuting them, by exacting revenge on them, would we have somehow made progress in eradicating racism? I'm not suggesting that individuals should not be held accountable. Every individual who engages in such violent acts of racism, of terror, should be held accountable. But what I am saying is that we have to embrace projects that address the socio-historical conditions that enable these acts, right? So that's, the major premise, and try to get beyond this issue of lack of a criminal indictment, because it's disappointing. I don't know that a lot of people are surprised by it, right? Basically what the state attorney general is saying, given the last 2 seconds of what happened, which is what they look at, that you weren't going to find a jury or a judge in Westchester County. And quite often, officers ask for a judge. They have that right, judge instead of a jury. And some of the judges are worse than a jury, right, of your peers, even if it's suburban Westchester, on holding police accountable, again, in a criminal forum. Again, going back, the thing I just said, the off-duty cop who was on videotape, 10 minutes of videotape, showing him getting riled up and then beating up a guy who had already been cuffed or is being cuffed and starting to beat on him, and who was in compliance. And then when he was in compliance again, down on the ground being cuffed, this guy starts hitting him and kicking him again. And he was acquitted by a judge in what they call a bench trial, right, instead of a jury trial. So I tend to think we need to be forward looking. First of all, there's nothing in this. Well, as Kwame said and others have said, there's they call it a recommendation, not plural, but they have different points in it. It's kind of vague. We need to do something better with that, I think. Which is, one of the selling points I would have on the Civilian Complaint Review Board that we're trying to adopt, at least in Rochelle.
How's that going? I know.
And there'll be a big civil lawsuit. I mean, which will look, you got to rewind past, what just happens is they're grappling on the ground, and whose fault is it that they're grappling on the ground and all this stuff is happening. I don't know if you want to go through it. I could go through it point by point. I wrote, as I wrote to you, I mean, 14 months and there's still more than the, generic 20 questions that don't seem to be raised, much less answered. Right. And it kind of starts with, what was the call that went out here? Is this, by a 911 or not by a 911? And what did they, what was the tone? Why didn't they? I mean, the number one issue I have is the person who really pushed for the mobile mental health response unit, that was already in effect at that time, had been, I suppose, 6, 7, 8 months.
And according to the mayor, and she was councilwoman at the time, it had been used 77 times up to that point that year. So I mean, so it wasn't like they didn't know how to use it, and
the model is, I mean, the model hasn't really been fully implemented. Well, it's been implemented, but not used. I mean, that's supposed to be the first response in a situation where, like this, they could tell there's something wrong with this guy. I mean, you read the report, and it turns out the new thing that turns out is that Detective Stephen Kahn, who was the shooter, had encountered Jarrell Garris a few minutes before he went into the supermarket, right? And he said he was disoriented. He looked, like he's on drugs, and nothing you could pick him up for. You could talk to him, but in any event, so then this incident happens at the store, and why wasn't that thinking put into place either by the 911 dispatch? If it was 911, I'm not. It says 911 here. I'm not sure.
According to the store owner, the little bit that I did actually get to the store owner, because after a certain point, the store owner refused to talk to me anymore. Yeah, he called and he told them that he thought something wasn't right with the individual. And if that's what was told to the dispatcher, my problem is, where is the breakdown? What did the dispatcher say to the officers? What did the dispatcher, why not reach out to Project Alliance? And I have not got from the city of New Rochelle, what is the policy when that happens? What is the part 1, 2, 3? Call these people, to let the officers know that because they'll probably be there first, that they're on the way, whatever. Like, what is the policy? And I have not been able to get that in 14 months.
It sounds to me, I gave you what, the ideal scenario is that you don't have to involve the police from the beginning, except as backup, but apparently they're doing it the other way around, where the police will show up and it's up to the police to call for this, this kind of backup as well as all the other kind of backup that apparently showed up right afterwards. Full disclosure, I'm glad you said that about what the store owner said, because he told that to me as well.
Right, and
I know him pretty well.
That's what he said to me and to others. So,
right. So from my perspective, known him a while, nice guy. He put in the supermarket with fresh, that area is a little bit of what they used to call a food desert.
Mm-hmm.
And he puts it quality product, especially fresh fruits and vegetables, which is expensive, the fresher, and he's not part of a chain like Damon, you were saying, he doesn't have the same volume
Right.
as a Costco or even, regular supermarket, the other chain supermarkets. So to make a living, it's expensive, more expensive than other places.
Right.
Whether there was $15 worth, I mean, the report here said it's $15 worth of strawberries. That's a lot of strawberries. I don't know if that one's accurate, but in any event.
But see, that has grown, because in the beginning it was like a couple of grapes and something else. It was like what came to like $1.50 or a couple of dollars. Like, so
yeah.
That story is growing, I guess, as to what it was, because he actually ate. I can't see him eating $50 worth of strawberries. What he did is he ate a couple of grapes and something else without paying for it.
You had a bottle of water, it messed up the display, and whether the sanitary, whatever. But so in the summary of the report at the beginning, right? It's a couple of interesting verbs in here when you read it. Detective Stephen Kahn walked over, so he's the two female officers are talking to him, right?
And they did a good job. They did a decent job speaking. They addressed him by his name. They were like, "What's going on?" They tried to ask him questions.
Could be the training manual, right? It could be the training video for what to do right.
Right.
And then we have the part what to do wrong, right?
Right. And then Khan came out of the car and kind of rushed the situation.
Well, that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So the first, in the overview and summary, it says he walked over and determining that Mr. Garris was not complying. Later in the report, it says, as we see with our own eyes in the video, they call it a quick jog, right? He bolted over there.
Right.
Determine, what did he determine in that brief? What did he think over and determine, other than the store owner said, "I want to press charges." Even if he did, the store owner's not he's not the DA, he's not the chief judge executioner. That's a factor in what you're going to do next. But he didn't think and determine anything. He went out and started tackling a guy on the double yellow line. They didn't even wait for him to walk all the way across the street.
Right, because the second the female
with traffic, there's traffic coming all over.
She was walking him over to get him out of the street.
Yes, at the very least.
Yes,
and at the very least, again, a lot of this is going to be you've never been a police officer, Monday morning quarterbacking, but the idea is for future use. Let's talk about what the right things to do are to keep officers safe and the community safe. Keep the civilian, the dozens of cars going across a very busy road, based on your seeing 5 minutes before and seeing again that this man is not responding. Let's not forget he's a big man. There's how when they teach hidden bias, white people see black people as bigger, but this was without a doubt that he's a big man. And thinking strategically about what you're going to do. You, an average sized man, and two small female police officers, what are you going to do about this minor violation? And a man who seems, he could be on drugs or otherwise incapacitated, may have a mental health issue. Even think about tactically. If what's the main thing to when you're in sports, you want time and space, right? Police, you have the whole time in the world. You don't have to conclude this thing right now. And if you're feeling like this is some kind of guy you may have to tase, I'm just throwing out there. It's easier, as you saw in this case, it's easier to, if everybody's off a bit rather than everybody's on top of them, for the person who's being told to tase the guy. To find an angle, and she didn't. The other female officer didn't find an angle to do that.
I wanted to say too. A couple of weeks later, they do know how to handle this, because a couple of weeks later, I was on Webster Avenue. There was an emotionally disturbed individual in the middle of the street. They were holding off traffic and they were guiding him off to the side. They weren't tackling him. They weren't, and he was definitely like, going at them. They held some kind of decorum or whatever you want to call it, and they were able to get him out of the street. I watched all of this. Yeah. Now, what he did and what the call was, I don't know. I just know, and this was weeks later, and this was on Webster Avenue. It can take time.
It can take time, and right. Maybe some people have to wait with their cars until but it's better than having a shootout in the middle of a busy street, and kind of on sacrosanct land as well. I mean, St. Catherine's
right in front of the
what congregations here since 1841, right? It's just something you don't envision happening at some other houses of worship. I just say that might be handled differently in different places, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and just so many other things. Which questions I just sort of thinking about today hadn't written down. The thing about the holster. Now the
Damon spoke about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that it's like a 2.5-step process to do this. It's not like you see the shootouts in the Old West. We just quick draw. It's a little bit of a process, right? There's a hood and there's a sentry kind of thing. You can have an additional check on that. You have to be able to know where the bullet is pressed, and it's harder for a face-to-face takeaway. Right, if you have this, and so my question is, there are different standards. There's different levels of security for the different kinds of holsters. And do all the officers do this? Do they? Is there a departmental policy on and also the thigh holster? I don't know, Damon. What is that a good place to have? I mean, apparently there are pros and cons to that. Rather than having it on your hip, you may have better control if it's on your hip than
you have
on your thigh.
You have to be trained. That's tactical, right? Yeah. When you have it on your hip, that means that you have been trained in tactical procedures. You just don't put a gun on your hip, right?
Yeah.
But the holsters,
belt level versus.
Well,
I even saw things that said it's harder to get at if you have it on the thigh. Think about if you're wearing a seatbelt, which you should be. Even officers should be wearing seatbelts. It may be easier.
Those holsters is not easy to take a gun out if you don't know how to take it out. That's number one, right? And number two, if Detective Khan, the report says that the female officer Savory,
yeah,
she told him he's good.
But
I don't understand. Hold on.
Okay.
Let me finish. She told him that Jarrell was good. So what was the reason for him to run and decide to use physical force and take him down after the officer on the scene that was dealing with him said he was good?
In the middle of the road, middle of the double yellow line.
Right. Exactly.
With traffic.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's that'll be an issue in the civil case, but
well, he's going to have to explain to it, and if if New Rochelle Police Department has any type of accountability, he should be fired because he created the situation.
Absolutely,
he created the situation.
Absolutely.
They would be escalating, Brother Garris. They knew that something was not right with him, and he escalated. He should get fired. He escalated the situation. But this is something I like to bring up to people that me and some of my mentors talk about. We see a lot of how do you call it? when senior officers want to show off that they're senior officers and they're dumb as hell, and they put junior officers like these two ladies in these type of predicaments. He was showing off. He was probably showing off because you already had two officers on the scene. One officer told him he's good. So what was all the cowboy stuff? What was it for?
And among the three of them, the officer who apparently had the training on, recent training on de-escalation techniques and that sort of thing was one of the female officers, one that ended up on the ground.
Right, because they do it.
Bird.
Because they do it now in the academy.
Yeah.
So they were like the new generation, officers that get the de-escalation training. And this guy probably didn't get it because he's a detective, so he had to be there a couple of years before. And for some reason, police departments cannot train 120 cops in 1 year. I don't understand that, because corrections, we have 800 and we get training every year. So if you can't train 100, 120, 150, then there's something wrong with your management, something wrong with your training unit, something wrong with your commissioner, something wrong with your chief.
So my point as a citizen with some knowledge of inner workings of government at this point is, where do we go from here? And again, I think it's another thing that shows the need for independent oversight of police. And we just had a public hearing a week and a half ago in Rochelle over some kind of independent entity, which unfortunately we're having to work this very hard over this in Rochelle because the county won't do it. The political will is not there to do it. And, I won't go into that as much here, but if people want to ask me what to, how do we get something like this? I tell you got to contact your county legislators, contact your county executive, deputy county executive. I'm fairly certain from knowing how the place runs that if George Latimer or Ken Jenkins told county legislators that we really want on a county level an independent body that'll be available to all the municipalities as a shared service, it would get done, and it would be done the right way, which we're trying to do in Rochelle. We're trying to amend what's been proposed to have investigative authority with subpoena power, investigate before the commissioner does, make the strongest recommendations possible. Politically and by the way New York State law looks, the final say so is going to be the commissioner, but we can make it so that commissioner has to state in writing a very good reason if he doesn't agree, and then political pressure can be applied. Depending on the form of government, we have a couple of steps involved in New Rochelle because we have the city manager form of government. We can't direct. The mayor doesn't have direct control, right, over the police commissioners, but there's kind of a chain of command. And I see Mayo is on. So
yes, I want to introduce our next guest, and I wanted to read this comment. Pat Fowler Bennett, as a member of Jarrell Garrett's family, I am appalled that the AG James did not impose any charges against Officer Khan. It is very disheartening, and the New Rochelle Police Department should not allow him to return to the force or any other police force. They should have called for backup and or crisis unit. Neither of them should sleep well at night. That's from a family member. And our next guest is Mayor Bartlett, civil rights attorney, represented Kenneth Chamberlain, and several others. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you, as always, for discussing some of the most important issues that we face that somehow are not covered in mainstream media. There are a number of things that strike me. The first is that, when you read the report, it seems as if everything was fine when the female officers were interacting with Mr. Garris. He was calm. One of the officers said that he seemed to be a little glazed over, and she recognized that, and she modified her behavior accordingly. So instead of barking commands at him, she spoke to him in a more de-escalating manner. Things were fine. And again, we're talking about interaction over virtually nothing. I mean, we're talking about theft, yes, and I'm not minimizing that to say that that's not important, but the value of what we're talking about is very small. Okay, we're talking about, something probably under $100.
Under $10, but yeah.
Under $10. Okay, so for under $10, somebody's lost their life. And again, I'm not suggesting the store should have people come in and steal anything at 1 penny, but what's an appropriate response, and what are we willing to do over $10 or $20 or $100, $1,000? But she was fine. Her partner was fine. And it was only when this male officer detective gets there and begins really just, barking orders and yelling for demanding compliance that things went south. And the other officers recognized this and told him to stand back. Okay, that's enough, Steve. Okay, so obviously if they're saying that to him, he's the issue. He runs up and grabs Mr. Garris. They didn't feel the need to do that. Okay, and immediately at that point, things are escalated. That's the exact opposite of everything that officers are trained to do. And in fact, as Damon said, look, as a correction officer, somebody who didn't have the luxury of having a gun and who knew that if things went south, that he's tremendously outnumbered in a jail. Okay, and that somebody were able to deal with people who are convicted of a variety of crimes or awaiting trial on a variety of crimes. And yet this doesn't happen with any frequency whatsoever. When it does happen, actually, in the jails, it's treated much more seriously than when it happens out on the street with police. Okay, so instead of de-escalating, this guy escalated the circumstances. Instead of taking advantage of Project Alliance, which was in existence, okay, where we spent lots of time working for the Westchester County's Police Reform and Reimagining Task Force to provide mental health services. Okay, I was co-chair there. Damon worked with us quite often. Damon Maher, Legislator Maher at the time. Kenneth Chamberlain worked on that task force. And one of his suggestions was that we needed to look at how we interacted with people who may have, and an emphasis on may have, mental health issues. And mental health issues could be anything. Because somebody has a mental health issue, it doesn't mean that that person is violent. And what I see over and over again is that people who we wouldn't have even known had mental health issues until their interaction with law enforcement end up being killed or harmed because of their mental health issue. And the mental health issue doesn't pronounce itself until their encounter with law enforcement, because law enforcement is escalating the circumstances. And, you do not have the ability to go in and to escalate circumstances and to justify use of force based upon your conduct, which escalates the circumstances. Now, okay, once Mr. Garris is on the ground, things become a bit less clear. And I guess that, there's a school of thought that could say that this detective believed that he was going for the officer's gun, but she says he doesn't have she never said he has my gun.
Right.
Okay.
After the fact, she says he doesn't have it. After the shot, he says something about the gun. She said, "No, I have my gun.
I have my gun. Not only do I have my gun, but we later learned that the gun is holstered particularly in a difficult way for somebody to come and take it from her."
Exactly.
Okay, now he wouldn't have known that. Okay, and I'm not saying he should be all knowing, but if you're arriving at a circumstance where the officers that are on the scene have it under control, why do you need to insert yourself into that situation? Why do you need to now become the point person when you have no knowledge of the circumstances? So that's a bigger issue. And look, as a person who goes through different communities every day, as many of us, most of us do, everybody that lives in New York State or in the United States should be deathly afraid, because you may love your police department. Your police department may be really, really great. Okay, matter of fact, 99% of the people in New Rochelle may be outstanding. They could be tremendous. You may love them, but there's always that one guy that's out there who's not great. And maybe they're not a bad person. They're just not well suited to be a police officer. And that's the type of person that can cause you or your loved one to lose their life. And they're everywhere. And when you look at communities like Westchester with over 40 police departments, when somehow New York City is able to get by with one, but Westchester needs 40 with 40 different standards, 40 plus different standards, then it makes it even more likely that this is the kind of thing that happens. And that's not even taken into account when you have multiple departments responding to one incident, where they're not even on the same page. They don't have the same training, don't recognize each other, have people that are plain clothes. And as in the situation with DJ Henry, believe that other officers are perpetrators. Believe that they're the ones that should be arrested. So not only are the public is at risk, but the officers themselves are at risk. And there seems to be no resolve to address this. So we've presented opportunities for departments to engage in free services like ABLE, which is active bystandership for law enforcement, which costs you essentially nothing other than what I've been told is the time. So whatever time it costs for someone to sit in the academy. But there's never a question about that when the time is for use of force of a tank or some military grade equipment. Then we're never concerned about them taking that time or traveling outside the country to learn how to be more aggressive police, and based on what someone else is doing, as if we don't know how to police in the United States. There's always time and money for that. But when we're talking about something that focuses on the mental health and well-being of officers, which then should logically translate into better interaction with the rest of us, and which recognize that if I'm a cop and I'm not at my best, what in the world would make you think I'm going to be at my best for you? Or that I'm capable of being at my best for you? So many departments never bothered even to take up the free opportunity to have officers go to ABLE. There is no... well, what we had tried to do in the county, at least, was a comprehensive, police review, Office for Police Accountability. And that's been now in the hands of the legislature for, I got to say now, about 3 years, which tells me that it doesn't mean anything. That's what it tells me. And I think I would be a fool if I believed anything other than that, because I watch rapid responses and knee-jerk responses to somebody writing a slogan on a wall in magic marker, and everybody seems to be able to go out to condemn that. But yet when people are shot, you don't see any elected officials running out saying, oh, gee, this was terrible. That never happens, ever. And so it just makes you wonder. And when we're constantly told who we need to support and why we need to pour money into a particular party, I really don't see how that could be true. I can't really see the difference at all. And I'm starting to think that when, for instance, I drafted an expungement bill for New York State, because New York State doesn't have expungement. And I was constantly told we're moving too far. But when I'm told we're moving too far, my bill was based on the 3 best bills, in my estimation, that I could find. And those bills were from solidly red states. So if you want to find expungement, go look at Utah. Always red, never purple, never blue. You go look at Kansas, go look at Arkansas. All these places we're told are so terrible, which are a lot cheaper than living in New York. And somehow they're able to expunge the convictions of their citizens. And the governor's never looking over their shoulder trying to figure out who's going to run to the right of them saying they're soft on crime. They're doing this not because they're and these are the same people who say, hey, vote for Donald Trump. So look, believe me, these are solidly red MAGA people. And they're willing to overlook 34 convictions of felonies, but they know that it's good for the people of Utah to have a path back into the community. Where here we are, we get excited about a lot of nothing, which is basically clean slate. And our clean slate's the weakest clean slate in the entire country. It still doesn't include expungement. It just gives you sealing. Well, when someone asks you, have you been convicted of a crime? You still have to answer it honestly. You still have to say yes. If you say no, then they're going to say that if you're applying for a job with the government, they're going to charge you with the felony for offering a false instrument for filing because you're lying, right? So I'm really at this point at a loss, and I tend to subscribe to the philosophy that if we have criticism, we ought to have a solution, or at least work toward a solution. And we still do that. But it's amazing how there's always a paralysis when it's time to do something for the actual people. And Damon, we've spoken about this frequently, that I, look, I'd love to see one party called People Before Politics, where you could get the 99.9% of the people who all are in the same boat, whether it's the white person that's living in Appalachia and struggling with opioid addiction, or maybe they're not, but a lot of people in the community are, so it makes it tough for them. Or it's somebody that lives in an inner city and maybe black, brown, or maybe white as well. And people who are not multimillionaires and billionaires, who all have to struggle and hope that one day they can retire if they have a job, who hope that they can get their children decent education that might lead to something that's AI proof, who have to hope that their interaction with law enforcement is decent and that maybe one or two of the police can afford to live in their community. So we never have money for that. We're always trying, how are you going to pay for that? Okay, but if there's a missile to be purchased someplace, there's always money for that. There's never a question about how we finance that. Okay, so how are we going to get basic health care to people? And, Mr. Garris shouldn't have struggled with the police. I can't imagine one person who's watching this, or the multitude that are watching whatever they're watching, who would think it was justified to have their loved one shot and killed because there's boiling water in a pot, or because they got upset and they were loud, or, oh, he's a big guy, what else did you want? Those excuses are given to us routinely. And as we know, it's not limited to Black people, because as we know, we've done many forums where we have video of white people getting their faces smashed into brick walls. And generally, it's poor people that don't have the ear of an elected official and can't write a $25,000 or $25 million check. And when you can't do that, you tend not to really be, you don't necessarily exist in the same way. And I've seen for the first time this new class of people, which is, I guess, the donor class. And those must be the real important people, because those are the people everybody falls all over themselves to impress and to please. And then there are the rest of us who are asked to give whatever we can give and come out and support and get excited because somebody wins in office, but there's really no change. I think in order for us to see any real change, it's going to have to come from the ground up. And that means that there has to be impetus for a mayor or for a manager, which nobody knows, who can hide behind in the mayor, because no one knows who their city or village manager is, or that person really has all the power. Okay, but we need to educate ourselves. And of course, as you know, they don't want us to be educated, because then you can't have what we have. An educated population doesn't accept the government that we have. And if you look, in my humble estimation, all over the world, it's the same thing. So wherever you look, if you won't see it if you're looking at Fox, MSNBC, or CNN, because they just tell you pure nonsense. Okay, they tell you about football, and they tell you, about the election and polls and something that really is inconsequential. And they won't even talk about real issues that should be concerning us with respect to the election. But if you look at what's happening in other countries, the police are cracking down on people in other countries because the people are not happy. The people are not happy because the government's generally not representing the people. So if you go to England, you go from, a center left, if you want to call it that, or maybe kind of more of a center, probably center right, but we think that's left. And there they went to, from the right, I'll say, and went to the left. And if you look at the rest of Europe, they went from the left to the right. And some people are saying, oh, this means that they're going to the left or the right. No, it means you're not happy with the government you have, so you go with the opposite of that.
Exactly.
And that seems to be every place, because the government's not representing the people. And these are simple things that shouldn't be difficult to understand. And it's not to say that police don't have a difficult job. It's not to say that they're not going to make honest mistakes. Okay, that's going to happen. But these are things that don't need to happen. And this is right off of, similar circumstances where, we just sued the city of New Rochelle on a case where, they beat my client and while he was handcuffed, an off-duty police officer ran up and punched him in his face on videotape. So, and then the officers went to the disciplinary hearing, and several of them were not honest. And the judge expressed a desire to be able to deal with them. Okay, now the city knows who these people are, and they know that they're not honest. Well, if you can't be honest about that, what can you be honest about? What should we trust you with? And the jury watches Dick Wolf TV shows that tell you that police have better sense than the rest of us. They can smell blood like a bloodhound can. They can see like an eagle, and they can hear things like an owl, right? Because they're not people that happen to just be police as a profession. And so they believe this. When they come into court and they hear a story, they think that anything that's not going straight with the DA and the police officer's viewpoint is fiction, and they don't believe in conspiracy theories, but they'll believe in conspiracy. So you'll have a real problem if you go into court and you contradict what the people say. That problem will come quite often from judges. It'll come from your jurors. The judges and the DAs don't even have to do anything. The police don't have to do anything, because before they even come in the door, you're met with skepticism. So if you look at the United States Department of Justice under President Obama, Kennedy, I forget the gentleman's first name, but anyway, he said that he couldn't find any wrongdoing in Mr. Chamberlain's case, where the police called him a nigger on tape.
Right.
Okay, and they couldn't find that was a bias incident. They couldn't find that was a hate crime or anything like that. It's unfortunate that it was used. Okay, and so maybe we need to have a campaign to redefine, racism. I mean, there seem to be other campaigns to redefine terminology, but if you can't do that under Obama, well, what hope is there in the Department of Justice for anybody, period? I mean, Joe Biden, Donald Trump said after the debate, which led to Kamala Harris becoming the candidate, at one point, Biden said he had defeated Medicaid. Okay. And when he said he defeated Medicaid, they asked Trump what he thought about that. And Trump said I don't know what he's talking about. And I don't think he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
Okay. And he took the foot off the gas and stopped attacking Biden at that point. Now, and then he said, well, if after he was no longer the candidate, he said, well, how can he still be president? Well, that was actually a very good point. If you're not capable of running for office, how are you still president in a time where we might have a nuclear war, when Moscow is being bombed with our weapons? So how are we not looking at who these people are that are calling the shots? How can we know that we should trust anything that we're being told? And the same for the state. I mean, if you really look at it, look, what went into the investigation? You had a couple of interviews of police officers. Were there any independent investigators from the AG's office that went out and did anything other than asking the police what happened? Did anybody look at any forensics? Did anybody, interview any other witnesses? I mean, there had to be a lot of people out there. Nobody else went across and did what they would have done if a police officer had been shot. Every person that was within a 5-mile radius would have been interviewed. And it would have been that type of an effort to make sure you get it right.
Just say there must have been, 10-13 like that. There must have been half a dozen officers who showed up right then too. And what were they saying? Were they getting their stories straight? Were they, they have their body cams on? Were they interviewed? What were they saying about the condition of the gun and the whole? I mean, there's a lot out there. That,
well, Damon, to your point, the police woman whose gun was supposedly being taken said, "Hey, I have my gun." Okay, so, but let's go back to what happened in the case. Immediately, the New Rochelle Police Department released some footage. Yes. I did an interview, I think, with Channel 2.
Up until before he got shot. The shot.
That's right. And I did a couple of interviews, one on Fox and one on Channel 2 or 7, I can't remember, where they said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I commend them for releasing the video. But the part that they didn't put in the interview was, I said, now, presuming it's the full footage. I'm not thanking somebody for cutting and pasting and giving us a director's cut. Show the entire video. And it shouldn't take you a long time to show that video. And when you get the whole video, and when you find out later, what they didn't tell the news was that the policewoman said, "Hey, I have my gun. He didn't have my gun." Well, that would have been helpful to put out in that first press release, right? That never was out there, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think I've ever remembered.
No,
To this day, I don't think that's out there.
They sent us the press release and they sent us the footage. And like I said, the three cops' cameras, the video ends before the shot. It wasn't even all from all three cameras. Then the AG's office released a little bit more, like a month or so later, and then I think that's where you see the shot, and then you see what the officer said. I have my gun.
I have a client who was a detective who got charged criminally by the Westchester County District Attorney's Office because while he was being assaulted by an ex-girlfriend, he actually had video of himself trying to get the heck out of there and saying, "I just want to leave." And they charged him with a felony because he didn't give them the full 12 or 13 minutes. He only gave them 8. So I guess there should be felony charges for some people in New Rochelle if you're sending that out there and I mean, are you tampering with evidence there, or what's the point in that? Is that propaganda? Is that to get a potential juror to have an opinion, form an opinion well before there's any kind of legal proceeding, whether it's criminal or civil, right? So someone will already say, "Oh, that's the case where," just like with Mr. Chamberlain, "Oh, he's the hatchet wielding man." He never had a hatchet. That was the first story they came up with. I mean, Netflix is looking for content. They should be talking to these people because apparently they come up with some great fiction on the spot, on a drop of a dime, and you can come up with stories that don't make sense, that are not based in any reality whatsoever.
By the way, speaking of power and juries, especially, I was recently on a grand jury, which is 22 people. Guess how many black people? You can use less than 2 black people out of 22. What is that? 9%, and that's certainly not, what the average percentage is throughout the county. Here's an easier one. So all the defendants. What percentage of defendants were black? 100. 100.
Right.
So, one lesson in that is, please, if you're a minority person, when you get a jury notice, don't throw it away or don't say, "Oh gosh, I hate jury duty." You gotta represent.
We had a show with the commissioner of jurors on, and she was explaining to our community why it's important for us to participate in jury duty. And, we talk about criminal justice reform. That is a big component, in us participating and being part of those juries. And I also wanted to say, when Mayo was talking about interviewing the people, there were cars that were being held off that were right there. And this happened right in front of them. And I know at least the one person who was in front has never been interviewed. She's never been interviewed.
They probably didn't want to hear what that person had to say because they knew that this was, I guarantee you.
And this happened right in front of her car.
If an officer had been shot or if the police were clearly right, they would have been interviewed. Okay. And going to Damon's point about the grand jury, let's think about what a grand jury is and think about how many cases found their way through a grand jury for people that we know are innocent, like Yusef Salam in Central Park 5. They all went through a grand jury. And a grand jury came out and found that they were all guilty. Okay. And you have people that are not even in the United States that get indicted for stuff. I mean, when they weren't even in the country, so a grand jury is housed in the DA's office. Well, it shouldn't be there. Okay. It's not a part of this, technically not a part of the DA's office. It's a part of the court, right? So why is it there? It should be in an independent building. The defense should have equal access to it. If my client's arrested, I can't ask questions in the grand jury. I can just sit there, like the quote unquote potted plant, as they like to say. I can't present witnesses. I can ask the district attorney to do that. And the district attorney sees these people for a month. So you start to know them. They know you. They know your son or daughter plays this sport or does that or plays this instrument. And you become friendly with these people. They bring donuts and bagels in the morning, and they're really great people. That's because they're not trying to indict you, okay, or your family members. But so they come across like they're these wonderful people. It shouldn't be there. You should have equal access to the defense. The defense should certainly have equal access to it, and there should be anything that's exculpatory should have to be presented. It doesn't have to be presented as it's currently stated, only identification that's exculpatory. So if someone says, something else that's exculpatory and you find out somebody's fabricated things, then it doesn't find its way necessarily to the grand jury. So there's so many flaws in our system. And the system is designed not to give us an opportunity to have a full and fair hearing. And 99% of the time, when you actually go to an actual jury, judges read a long narrative to jurors. And if you look over, half of the jurors, some of them are actually sleeping. Okay, prospective jurors. Some of them they're not paying attention to what they're doing. And then they end up saying, someone who is a grandparent and is about to take their grandkids to Disney in 3 weeks, and the trial might be 3 weeks. Okay, and so if you dare suggest that the trial might be a month, a judge may get upset with you and say it's not going to be a month, move on. Meanwhile, if it is a month, who are they going to blame? Who goes last? The defendant, right? And so they're going to blame us, and you're not going to get justice. You're going to get somebody who wants to get out of there so they can get on that plane and go to Disney. And even after the judge says the defendant doesn't have to do anything, the defendant doesn't even have to be present. And by the way, that's going to be an appellate issue for Donald Trump, because in his criminal case, they made him go to court and sit there. You can't do that, okay? Because there are people who are very polarized when it comes to Donald Trump. You either love him, you hate him, very few in the middle. So that probably deprived him of a fair trial. I don't know if his lawyers argued that, but they should. But that's neither here nor there. Nobody should be required to sit there. Some people don't make a good appearance. And at the end of the day, everyone's presumed innocent in theory. In reality, is that the case? No, because once you start asking these people after they've listened to the judge read this, and you say, does anybody think that my client must have done something because they're sitting next to me? All the hands go up, because they say, well, he wouldn't have been arrested if he wouldn't be here if he didn't do something. But that means you don't believe that the person's innocent until proven guilty. It's like going to a house of worship and people are reading scripture, and the minute they get out of the house of worship, they're doing the exact opposite of everything that was said. Well, that's what happens. So we get used to saying yes. We get used to looking at someone and you like this person's tie or that. I mean, the things that jurors tell you after trial, it's astounding. And they were lucky to have you, Damon, because if you weren't there, I know at least you were thinking critically and analytically. And that's all we want. I think going back to your point, AJ.
All I'm allowed to say is I did ask, there were actually more lawyers than there were black people. And so the three of us, I think, asked some questions. But every time you did that, you can't ask directly. You can ask the ADA to ask the question. And quite often she'll find a reason not to ask it. But every time you did it, you got, what do you call that, sucking teeth? It was, because, she wanted to get through and everybody else wanted to get through, good, solid citizens. But, as you say, the DA is your friend and your lifeline to the whole world, the time you're in there. And, so, the tendency is to move things through and not think through what they're giving you and asking. And yes, so when I or another attorney, and none of us were criminal attorneys, I'm not a criminal attorney, asked a few questions, it was, okay, or no, we can't ask that because, whatever technical reason I didn't understand under the criminal procedure law. But
no, and it's something they simply didn't want to get into. So like when they say you can indict a ham sandwich, you can certainly make sure one doesn't get indicted as well. And
exactly.
What I would tell you is, just having tried a federal case similar to the one that Diddy is being tried for now, human trafficking for the purposes of sex, and a federal grand jury never received exculpatory information, what we call Brady material. And in that case, there were supposedly 4 separate days that my client was abusing this person. And on the first day, he's in the middle of a 2-week trip in Europe. So he's not here abusing you. On the second day, he's in the hospital with kidney stones, so he's not there abusing you. On the third day, the police are at their house by mistake, and nobody says, "Thank God you are here. You're saving us. It's a miracle." And on the fourth day, there was something that was so implausible that this victim, alleged victim's brother, said that would have been crazy. That never happened. Well, why wasn't that presented to a grand jury? Maybe they don't indict. Okay, so on that case, we won every contested count, but you don't always win the cases that you're supposed to win. Quite often you don't, so he was very fortunate there. But these are things that we don't deal with. And while it doesn't directly go toward Mr. Garris's case, I thought it was important for us to talk about that, because much of what happens, in particular if it's coming from an attorney general's office in the state or from federal Department of Justice, whatever they do is discretionary. They're doing it because something politically told them they should do it. It's some political gain. They're not being told, even for these officers with Mr. Garris, look, they didn't wake up in the morning thinking they were going to see him and deal with him over some petty larceny in a supermarket. So I give them that. The Department of Justice and the Attorney General's office, if they don't want to be involved, they're not involved. Now, the Attorney General's office has to be involved in police-involved shootings by statute.
If there's a death, yeah.
If there's a death.
Because
So
the district attorney was looking into it up until he lived for 7 days. Once he died, then the AG's office automatically takes over.
Well, I mean, again, I'm one of the people who advocated for that. Okay, and I thought that we needed an independent prosecutor, but
it doesn't stop us from having an independent civilian organization we can draft a law that says we can suspend our investigation while the DA or the AG is doing something, or we can have a parallel investigation. It goes, you often make that decision when you do civil litigation, right? Where how much you're going to wait for what comes out in the criminal case, because there are different standards of proof, and there are different immunities. It's the fifth. Well, you can plead the fifth in a civil case, but the difference in a civil case is you can point that out to the judge and jury that somebody has taken the fifth, and you can make every adverse inference right from that, as opposed to a criminal case where you can't even mention that fact.
Right, but I'm gonna. Hey, Mayo, the Attorney General's office is not an independent party. She's a politician. Her office is a politician. When Mayor Adams, when he was Senator Adams, and he put the independent special prosecutor bill, it was bringing somebody on the outside, not the AG's office, not another political hack, because that's just another politician, because they're making decisions based on whether their office is going to look good, whether they get a W or an L instead of justice.
So we supported an independent prosecutor.
Right.
And if there was going to be an independent prosecutor, that person has the resources necessary, a separate independent office, not elected, not somebody that's easily pressured by whoever appoints them, Exactly. And when you stop and you look at all of this, the other thing that we advocated for was licensing of police officers. Okay, so even if you found that perhaps, let's assume it doesn't rise to the level where you can bring criminal charges. Okay, you can always bring civil actions, but it doesn't mean you win, but you can bring them. However, as a lawyer, if I'm found to have engaged in misconduct, I go before a disciplinary committee and I can lose my license to practice law. If I have a DWI, I get into a fight, petty larceny, steal 1 penny, 1 cent from anybody, I'm not probably practicing law, or at least there's going to be a heck of a lot I have to do to try to maintain my ability to practice law. That's the same for hairdressers. That's the same for nurses. And people that drive commercial vehicles, all kinds of things like that. So what should certainly exist is police at a bare minimum should have to have that same licensing requirement, so that even in a circumstance like this, you don't just walk back to your job. Because if you're found to have not maintain standards, the minimum standards necessary to safely be a police officer, then that job should be taken from you. It's a privilege. It's not a right. Just like your driver's license is taken on a DWI or you speed too many times. If you're a teacher and you engage in misconduct with a student, even if they don't arrest you and charge you, you will lose your job. And you don't go to the next police department, because in order for you to go there, you have to have that license. If you lose that license, then that means you're not going to be an officer in New York State anymore.
Right.
So I want to say, Black Westchester has been in touch with the father, and he was under the weather today, so that's why he couldn't make it. But and other family members, and they will be letting us know what their next plans are. So we will be continuing to cover this case. We will continue to bring you, when they decide how they want to proceed, we will bring you that. So we're on top of that. And again, shout out to the family, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Damon.
Brother Damon Maher, man, I'm going to be sending you a letter from Black law enforcement so you could give to whoever need to have it in New Rochelle that Detective Khan should be fired.
And so a good platform for that, where I also have the points involving a strong independent police board will be New Or News. Yes. newornews.org. Look on there.
Okay.
For this stuff. And yes, do send me that, and I'll make sure it gets on there.
Yes. They do a great job too.
Yeah. They
do a great job.
They're on. Well, we're
right
here in Rochelle. They were all there. They were marches,
Yeah.
I mean, how do I do this without seeming I'm inciting something? But, I've been to the marches. You march around, the corner of North and Lincoln. Who sees it? It's just same old, same old. Where you go further with direct action is something, I'm not an expert on it. I'm just some old white guy who's, read a lot about the civil rights struggles and all that. I wasn't there. I was 3 years old when, people were marching on Washington. But there's that, and, and pressure on, elected officials that they have to, do I want to say fear? They have to respect.
No, they have to fear.
Exactly. The left as well as the right. Even in election, even in a general election.
But they got.
You can look at cards. I got a handout for somebody running, and read the thing, and it was a Republican, and there was nothing on there that some of our Democrats aren't saying. There's when you talk about this issue or affordable housing. They're not even, at least a few years ago, when we were all marching, they were saying different stuff that didn't happen, the Democrats. But now, they're not even saying that stuff.
They're all the same.
I mean, if you look at that quote I put in from Vice President Harris, it's not something she would. Hasn't said it. Shouldn't say it in the debate or any of the interviews she'd had. But hopefully, she still believes that stuff.
Well, I mean, from my opinion, brother, they got us all Trump-atize, because when you're critical of Democrats on handling certain situations, the first thing they bring up about Trump, like, I don't care about Trump, and I don't think the Garris family is thinking about Trump when a city that is predominantly run by Democrats have killed their son, has allowed this to happen to their son. And a Democratic attorney general, Black woman, has allowed not to look for any type of charges against their child. So we don't want to hear about Trump. Trump is a distraction when it comes to police crimes against Black people, because these are Democratic cities. As I said, Greenburgh, Democratic city. White Plains, Democratic city. Yonkers, Democrat, Republican, whatever they are, I'm not even sure, right? Mount Vernon, Democratic city, right? all these cities, Westchester County Police, mostly Democratic run county, all these institutions have had situations of police killing unarmed black men. Trump ain't nowhere to be found. He's in Mar-a-Lago. So when we sit here and we get filled with this political nonsense, but locally we don't see justice. As I said, black people, really, the reality is in Westchester, black people don't know what justice really looks like when it comes to police killings of unarmed black people. And sooner or later, black elected officials is going to have to be called to task because they're silent on that. But when there's a swastika on a dumpster, ain't hurt nobody. It's just a swastika on a dumpster. The dumpster ain't got a heartbeat, right? The dumpster ain't called police. The dumpster gets shot by the police. It's standing room only. It's standing room only. We couldn't get a politician to stand with us for Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. They gave all type of excuses not to come out. Other than you, Damon, we ain't talking about you. we're talking about the ones that it's standing room only.
And you see where I am now, right?
right. And even black pastors, we couldn't even get black pastors to come out. We couldn't black pastors to come out.
And Jamal came out. Jamal came out. You see where he is now.
Exactly. But let it be a dumpster. The same black pastors that wouldn't come, they stand in room only for the dumpster with the swastika. You know, so when we say Black Lives Matter, first we got to make them matter to us. They don't even matter to us in this political spectrum and dealing with that. When black elected officials do not want to talk about police killing black people. So sometimes should we vote for them? Sometimes should we vote? And then when we question that, we get, you don't want Trump to win, or you don't want the racist Republican to win. But my child just got killed by police under you, Democrat. And you haven't done anything. We have to start thinking. We have to put our thinking caps on, as they used to say in elementary school, and not be so emotional about this politics stuff, because it's literally killing our children.
Whoever we vote for has to earn the vote.
Exactly.
And earning the vote's not just by making a statement or some slogan, it's follow-up. And if you don't do what you said you're going to do, then the simple thing is not even to debate and go back and forth arguing with the person, just vote them out. Don't support them. And you almost have to wonder why some of them are running in the first place. I mean, are you really running? You know, let's put it this way. Damon has been consistent, period. Okay?
Absolutely.
And he is here not as an elected official anymore. He's here as you know, what you see is what you get. There's an authenticity there. And we don't quite often get that, nor do we demand it. So if we don't demand it, we get what we get. And then we're always surprised to find somebody that's a Democrat talking about the left wing and the woke crowd and all of that stuff. And it's like they're more critical than the Republicans are quite often. And, you know, undermining things that we think we can accomplish, that you spend all this time trying to accomplish. So, you know, like a meaningful police reform. And by the way, the people who really love meaningful police reform are cops. Okay, all my friends who are cops, they love real police reform. Matter of fact, when we were talking about the Office for Police Accountability, the most support I got for that was police. You know, if you're in a small town, you don't want to be in that small town, and they're the ones that judge you, because that's not going to be based on whether you're a good person. It's going to be based on whether they hate you, and if they do, they're going to get you out of there, possibly because you're doing the right thing and rocking the boat. And it brings me back to Chief Tedesco of Troy, New York. Remember, he came down and gave a presentation at the forum we had at Pace Law School.
That's right.
And he called the FBI in to investigate his department because he was concerned about the corruption in his department. And their retaliation against him was to have a disciplinary hearing into him. And he said, well, you can open mine up to the public. You know, mine will be on the news because I don't do things like that. I haven't done anything that's wrong. And then all of a sudden they decided to end the inquiry because they couldn't intimidate him because he hadn't done anything to compromise himself. So, you know, those are people that we should be supporting. And when you get good people, we have to support those people, whoever they are, whatever they look like. Those are the people we need to be supporting. And again, going back to the whole concept of people before politics, the people who are trying to do the right thing don't come in a particular shape, size, color, anything else, nationality. They're good people. And if you find those people, we have to embrace and support those people. And if somebody happens to look like me, but they're a monster, don't vote that person in and tell me I've won.
Absolutely. I wanted to say, one other thing about Damon Maher, not only was he out there boots on the ground, but he was holding his fellow legislators accountable when they were sending these letters to Minneapolis for recommending that the officers, be charged or whatever it was. And he's like, they sent the first one, I think you signed it, and they sent another one out, and you were like, I'm not signing this. Where was all of this when Kenneth Chamberlain was killed? Where was all of this when this one was killed? Where was this when Christopher Ridley was killed across the street? Where was the stuff here? I got people in my district that are being killed, and there's never been a letter like that. And he refused to sign it, and he called all of them out. We need more people like that. Unfortunately, he's not still there, but we need more people like that that's going to stand up to their colleagues in that way. We don't see that. That's not a normal thing. That's a very rare thing. So I just want to give him this problem.
But AJ, see, what we should have learned from that is that if we want to get something done, we should be asking people in Minnesota to write Westchester.
Right.
Get somebody from Michigan to write a letter to Westchester. That's a better response, right?
I want as we come to the close of the show, I wanted to give the two of you chances for any last words, anything that y'all want to get out to address this. Start with you, Mayo.
I just think that, number one, please support Black Westchester and support any alternative media that you can find that's attempting to give you the truth. And I can tell you that having known AJ and Damon for a very long time, that they are dedicated people. They're not anti anybody. They love people, period. That's why they're here doing this. It would be a lot easier for them not to do this. And they don't have the resources of a CNN or an MSNBC, but somehow they still get it right almost every single time. And if there is a mistake, then they say that, hey, look, we were mistaken here or there, and you don't have to drag that out. So it's important that we support it. I thank you guys for doing what you do. And I always am just hopeful that more people get to see it and have something else to think about because they go out, people watch TV, they watch 60 Minutes, and then they run out and they repeat whatever they saw as if it's truth. And it's quite often the farthest thing from being true. So I just thank you guys and thank you for inviting me to come.
Thank you, my brother. As we celebrate our 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, I want to double up on that. Provides a forum. We had a few weeks ago before your break. You heard all sides on that Mamaroneck Village housing thing. Yeah. As it turned out, the forces of the anti came up with a whole nother reason to try to delay it. But at this point, one of the trustees in favor of it, Lou Young, who's a old-time TV guy, TV news guy, called it out and said, "No, we're going to vote." Because the latest thing was a whole plan to redevelop across the street that would have required a couple more years of new planning. And so, sure, Mayor Torres, who you had on, hey, that's a great plan. You work on that after we pass this one. You really think you want to do that. And so they ended up going with the West Hab plan, which has like half as many units as the private for-profit developer, which people should be happy about. It would create less congestion because that's always that it's going to be congestion. There's traffic, So if somebody says traffic, I'm thinking, well, the ulterior motives, right? That it's not about traffic.
Right.
And sometimes they really tip their hand, as they did in this case. The online. The online petition against the housing had 11 points, but I think point number 7 was the test scores are going to go down in the school district.
Wow.
How's that?
Oh,
That's not even a dog whistle. That's like
Wow.
banging a gong, right? To say the kinds of kids
Wow.
we're going to have, it's going to reduce. So that passed, and and it still has to jump through all sorts of other hoops, but it's a beginning after full dialogue over a year. And people complain about the delays. Well, the delays were always brought by those who were opposed to it. So, including a mini riot that happened, during one of them, and all the white people demonstrating against affordable housing should have been arrested. They're doing their civil disobedience thing. Part of civil disobedience is being arrested. If you're in favor of a cause, good, bad, or indifferent, start arresting him. But no, they canceled a meeting, and that was part of a 2 or 3 month delay in this whole thing going forward.
Damon,
but my point is, you provide a forum.
And if you have affordable housing, people who quote unquote back the blue, you should love affordable housing because that allows police to live in your community, right? So the people from the community can actually live there if it's affordable, instead of somebody coming from 3 or 4 counties away to be a police officer in your town and then going back up.
So I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the points I make in supporting amendments to make a stronger independent police board is let's give incentives, to tax exemption incentives or whatever, or down payment assistance to police officers and maybe other firefighters or whatever, but specifically police officers to live in the city, and specifically in 10801 and 10805 zip codes. So they are in the community and they have a little more sensitivity to what's going on, and they may personally know more people, because that's another part of what we were talking about in the task force. Is technology is great now. If you know somebody, or if somebody's been entered in a database without getting too big brotherish about it, that they have some mental health issues, that they've been seen before, like apparently this officer had a service call with regard to Jarrell Garris at some point. Is that a database you can access and say, oh, there's a particular way we got to handle this guy. No loud noises. Let's not have the sirens and the guns and does he have some way that his family helps de-escalate him? Is there a family or other support system in the neighborhood? We walk them there. It's not that it's a walkable neighborhood. So why aren't we doing these things?
And if you know him, by the way, if you have someone there that knows him or who grew up with him, you probably are able to de-escalate just with a conversation, because now
grew up with him or grew up with his parents. Yeah.
Right. You don't need, you just say, hey, come on, let's just relax. It's going to be okay. And it doesn't become an enforcement moment. And I know Damon can tell us about being in a prison where just a conversation with somebody and it calmed down. And you didn't need to call 50 guys in combat gear to come and get this person. And it's a guy bigger than you. And maybe you're not winning that one-on-one with that person, but it never gets to that point because there's a relationship there. Right. It's a real community, and we're moving far away from having community.
No, absolutely. Because when you have an officer that has that type of respect in the community, and they treat people like human beings, you're able, just by you showing up, they change their attitude. They say in law enforcement, the first use of force is presence, being present. But just not being present, you have to have a connection with the community that you serve, or the population that you serve. In my instance, I would able just to walk on a housing area and everybody will stop doing what they're doing because of my reputation within the department and with the people that are housed there. So they will stop doing dumb things because of who I was and the respect that they had. See, a lot of these cops rather think that they come outside of the community and they come in the community and they think that they're supposed to that they put fear. You're not there for the community to fear you. You're there to be problem solvers of people that have problems, especially when you're dealing with distressed communities, right? So you don't look down to them. You know, I used to tell cats, you have two options. Either you want me to treat you like an inmate or you want me to treat you like a man. I could do it well both ways. I know how to do both of them both ways. But I'd rather you choose for me to treat you like a man than an inmate because you're going to have a long day.
And they'll respect that.
And they respect it. But you also have to have the mindset to treat people like human beings. To treat people like human beings. See, a lot of these police departments and even in corrections, they just want to fill, if they need 50, they need to hire 50, they just put 50. No matter of the integrity, the character, or the personality of the person. They just want to fill those slots. And then, unfortunately, you know, they don't want to pay overtime. So they keep these guys there knowing that they're problems. And this is what we see. And this is the result. So I think in New Rochelle, in all the different cities, you have to have proper leadership of the department. You know, they set the tone of the department. They really do. So if your department's fucked up, you need to, excuse my French, you need to look at, you need to really look at your leadership. And then if the mayor doesn't want to change the leadership, you change the mayor. It's simple. It's just simple as that.
And people forget that the commissioner is not elected. The commissioner is appointed. They're at the pleasure.
Exactly.
So if the mayor thinks that, and anytime you can go throughout history, anytime it's bad for the mayor to have a particular commissioner, that person goes. They're gone. And if the mayor lets the commissioner know what their expectations are, that commissioner is going to let the chiefs and the captains and everybody else, all the way down to the new recruits, know that this is not acceptable. This is what we're going to do. And they'll do that. And that's in any organization. That doesn't matter. You could be working at CVS. If they want you to stack the cards a certain way, that's what you're going to do, or you won't be there. You know, even with civil service, which creates some impediments to, you know, firing somebody, but that doesn't mean that you get the assignment that you want. So, you know, there are all kinds of ways that people get dealt with, you know.
No. It is. I mean, it's kind of harder in small police departments because it's hard to put those foolish ones. You don't know where to put them because the department's small. But, you know, I always said, if I was ever police commissioner, I'll just have a room and put you in the room. Until you decide to retire, because we don't need you here. And if you don't want to retire, your assignment is this room every day for 8 hours. Because we got a police department to run, and it needs to run right. And if you're the problem in management, you're going in the room.
When you're a whistleblower, there's no difficulty putting you somewhere you don't want to be. Right. So I remember when I was in the DA's office, whistleblowers ended up somehow you're being asked to portray a prostitute in Brooklyn. I said, well, wait a minute, we're in Westchester. Why are you sending this woman to Brooklyn as a prostitute? I mean, how good is that going to be? So you're essentially telling her, you know, this is going to be our version of Serpico, because that's not going to work out well. And who wants to do that, even if it did?
Right.
That's the kind of stuff, you know, that they do. And it's again, it's our fault, because the one thing that we do have, at least on paper, is the ability to go vote. Okay. And the ability to make sure that your vote counts. Now, does the vote count? Just I'm throwing just this out. I think that when you go vote, you should get a receipt. And that receipt shows that you voted. Okay. And your receipt may say who you voted for. And you can look and say, yeah, that's right. And then down the road, if so, you can say, hey, look, let's you can have a recount. right now I go vote. I guess I vote. I don't know. I mean, all I know, at least I used to close the thing and pull some levers and stuff. So it felt like I was more physical. Now I'm circling things and putting it into a machine. I don't really know what happens.
Another thing you might try, because I'm just thinking, because I know the County Democratic Committee this week is having their annual, organizational convention. They pick the leaders, which I won't be at because I switched to Working Families Party. But they're picking their leaders, and the only two issues they're dealing with is supporting two referenda. One is, the Equal Rights for Women Amendment, which is a good thing in New York, and the other is increasing the terms of my former colleagues. They want this themselves from moving it from 2 years to 4 years. So they're pretty passionate about putting that forward. And if you know who your district leader is, or who any of your, town, village, and city leaders are, you could mention, hey, what about police reform as well in your community or in, at the county level. I mean, really, to do this well and get the economies of scale, get professional staff, it's really got to be regional.
Right.
Albany is doing this. Albany city of 100,000, and they use, if they have a really big matter, they have to refer it to independent experts. But wouldn't it be nice to be able to draw on that? Any community that wants to draw on that from the county level.
No, it's definitely needed. But I want to go back to what Mayor was saying when I ran for city council in Mount Vernon, and I lost, and people didn't even know I lost. They thought I won. And to this day, now this is maybe 10 years later, I haven't found one person that voted for Marcus Griffith. People literally thought I won. People was congratulating me. And I said, no, I didn't win. They said, what? Everybody was voting for you. And so I knew what they did with the numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to, I don't know, man. Like, I really think sooner or later, the people are going to get tired, and we're going to have another type of revolution in this country, because it's not. They don't want to change it. They want to remain in power. This two-party system is not working, and sooner or later, people are going to get tired of it. They're going to start.
The two parties try to politically decapitate all the third parties.
Right, but sooner or later, they're not going to be able to, because people are literally going to get tired of it.
Federally, I mean, you have to wonder why people are running for these positions to begin with, and if you go into Congress as a regular person with a regular job or two regular jobs, and you have the same concerns that most of us have in terms of putting food on the table. Maybe you might take a vacation. If you have kids, making sure they're clothed and all of that. Well, what in the world happens? How do you all of a sudden become a multi-millionaire?
Exactly.
Worth 20, 30, 40, $50 million off of your public servant salary. Exactly. And you're engaged in insider trading. It's sort of like the Supreme Court can do all the things your local village court justice can't do. And so why are we allowing that? And I understand that, people don't know that that's even happening because we're not an educated society, and we think that we are free and we're a democracy. But I mean, when you stop and look at that, and then what contracts can you hand out? So if you're the mayor of New York City, what contracts do you get to hand out? I mean,
well, I guess they find it out now because everybody's getting subpoenaed and everybody's house is getting raided.
Except this is not the only mayor who's done this. This is what mayors do.
Exactly.
The mayor that gets his house raided, and everybody affiliated with him gets the house raided, and then that makes everybody else say, "Well, gee, do you want to be deputy mayor? Why would you want to be deputy mayor? Because does it matter that they don't have a case against you? All that matters is your neighbors watch the FBI descend on your house, put you, your wife, and your family face down in the yard, and come out with all the computers." Okay.
and the poor guy just gets made police commissioner and the feds go in his house. Jesus Christ. I just got the position.
Right. Because you got a phone. So, I mean, why would you ever want to do that? And so, you know, the people who get in next time, I guarantee you, even when you look at voting fraud cases and all of this, oh, well, 2 of 10 signatures weren't, you know, the person says they didn't sign. How many people do you think didn't sign Trump or Biden's? All those signatures, you think all those people are alive and they all really signed those? Do you go charge Trump or Biden? Absolutely not. So there's a lot of political intimidation from the people normally who are multimillionaires as well, who seek these public servant positions that don't pay them enough money to pay the taxes on their homes, right?
Exactly.
So why are they doing this? And why are they so interested in these positions? And, you know, they say that they love us. Well, do they really love us? Or are they see us as a useful tool to achieve something else?
That's all it is. That's all it is. It's a useful tool to get paid, because there's elected official told me that was the biggest game in town, right? And now he's everybody he appoints get house get raided. So we're like we're looking at this, and you're right, man. Like, people leave millionaires. You know, one guy, I was trying to find the article because I thought it was a good idea to repost something like what he said. He said politicians should wear their sponsors like race car drivers. So all the people, you're laughing, but it's real, right? Just like race car drivers, all the people that donated money to you should have a patch on your suit to let people know who's sponsoring you.
Different sizes for the different amounts of money, right? Different location, you know, right on the cap.
Because see, that's what it's all about.
Well, you know, I'll stand up for a lot of my former colleagues who, you know, even if you really want to do the right thing, there's so much pressure to conform, right? The groupthink. You know, if you have such a great majority, it's 15-2 now in the county legislature, for example, Democrats to non-Democrats. One Republican, one conservative.
Exactly. We can't get a civilian complaint review board. Something's wrong.
Yeah, and
blame that on the Republicans. Yeah,
and they're, you know, their whole communities that everything is beautiful. I've got my trees, you know, I've got, you know, got 2-acre zoning. You know, it's low. I you know, I like the country. I call the country as much as anybody else, the northern half of Westchester and the parks and that stuff. But it's not, you know, it tends not to be a priority with those folks. But, you know, it's supposed to be give and take from the people who are representing, you know, the environment where they have more, you know, let's say more interactions with the police, or more unfavorable type interactions with the police.
Right.
Or more or more face to face, you know. And there's, you know, there's supposed to be, you know, I give you your, you know, we rebuild your dam if you, you know, make my community more safe for both the citizens and the police, you know.
Well, see, we never think that it's going to be us. We think that it's always going to be someone else. And
well, especially if we're white, to be honest, right?
But I can't tell you how many times I represent young white kids who got smacked around by the police, or you know, upper middle class white men smacked around by the police, talked to disparagingly. And so you think it's not going to be you, but it easily can be you.
Exactly.
And all of these people, as sad as it is, you know, that it does make you laugh, that part of it. But the reality is, because we've allowed this to become the norm, Mr. Garris is dead. Because we've allowed this to become the norm, Mr. Chamberlain is dead. You know, and then people will say, oh, you know, if you settle your case, look, if you settle your case, that's it. That I don't know anybody in the world who would rather have the money than have their loved one. Because Jeffrey Descovich, who's white, went to prison for 16 or 17 years for a rape and murder they knew he didn't commit, and he settles cases. And each time he gets a settlement, I say, well, that's great, Jeff. And if they multiplied it by 100, it doesn't bring you back. It doesn't undo what you did to the Central Park Five. And so, it's unfortunate that it's not until things directly strike us. I mean, can you imagine if Westchester was Gaza? Can you imagine if Westchester was being bombed, like in Ukraine or in Moscow or wherever? What people would say? It would be real then, right? But it takes that, unfortunately, for us to really understand, and it takes us losing our job for the economy to be meaningful. It takes our kids getting charged with a felony because they had a fake ID to get into a bar for it to be real. Hey, that seems heavy-handed. But before that, it's my bumper stickers back to blue and all of that. And in fairness, a lot of what the police do is not necessarily what they set out to do either. A lot of that comes down from political powers above them too. So someone tells them, hey, we need to balance the budget. So go out there and get more tickets and write more tickets and, all of that. But it's not a quota, but get more tickets. Well, that's more interactions with somebody. And then that's more of an opportunity to have a bad interaction with someone, especially when you're looking for things to do. I need a sweep. So you're out there arresting people that have been selling the same drugs for a year and a half right in front of you. And now all of a sudden it's time to make an arrest so you can have a headline that we got 55 people. So much of this, one of my friends says, what does it say for you if you're well adjusted to a sick society? And that should be a question we ask ourselves every single day, because this is not a healthy one. I don't care what anybody says. When I was a kid, we didn't have any of these issues. We had all kinds of issues, but these were not the issues we had. We knew all our police. It's not to say stuff wasn't bad and things didn't go wrong. Don't get me wrong. But, you knew people. You knew the officers. They knew you. They knew your parents. Your politicians, you knew. You literally knew these people. And you could talk to them more often than not. Now it's sort of, just one distraction from another. And it seems like everything's much more expensive. But when you look and see, are the people being actually represented? The answer is no. Are you going to damage your wheel and get a flat tire because your potholes are so deep? Yes. Are you going to have, people trying to take money to balance budgets where they're not supposed to take it, like Governor Hochul taking the money from the lawyers' security fund to help balance the state budget. Well, that's illegal. That's money supposed to go to help indigent people who need legal services. So none of that is really.
Hey, have the settlements, these big settlements, come out of the police budget.
Yes.
They come out of the police budget?
No,
they do not.
Right.
They should.
Plus, the other thing, again, to the independent body, it has to be funded properly. So you put right in the legislation, pick a percentage. 1% is a good thing. The budget every year for that independent police board has to equal 1% of the police budget.
And
make sure it's
so
properly
you'll be
funded.
fine. If that's the case, it'll be fine. It'll be properly staffed because the police budget is going to go up every year. And,
look, I don't understand it. When I came up, this might be some new policing thing. Commissioner's goal was to remain with the budget, whatever the budget line was, to stay in the budget. And if they were good, they would put their chest out how many millions they came under the budget. Right? This is when I started. Now, they don't give a damn about the budget. They go over the budget every year. They go over the overtime budget. They go over everything, and nobody cares. Nobody cares no more.
And how effective is an officer who's on a double shift, for example, going extra overtime?
well,
Right? That's a question that should have been answered, because you see, it was in Detective Khan in this case, to go full circle here. It in passing mentions he was on overtime for traffic, which, we have all this construction going on in Rochelle. And
so what was he doing? What was he doing?
And they think I'm not quite sure what the theory is, that you have to have a fully sworn officer who makes 100 and whatever 150 grand a year at all of these spots, other than a flagger who and all these buildings which are non-union, right? Flaggers probably around minimum wage. But we seem to have cops everywhere
yeah,
for those who are getting maybe they're getting tired and cranky. I mean,
yeah, but I'm trying to figure out if he was working a construction detail. Well, we lost you. Hold on. You got to unmute.
Said coming off of, or he's on a traffic.
So what was he? What was
detail?
So why was he on the scene?
Then how did he get involved? Yeah, because he was around the block. So he's already two officers there, and that's a good question. Why does he show up?
Well, maybe
he was on a special overtime traffic detail at the time of the shooting.
Yeah, but
working close to the station house.
We would get arrested at 4:00 every day. That's when all the arrests came in, because that's when the shift ended. So at 4:00 you come in,
make overtime.
you come talk to whoever the secretary is, right? And you hang out with them, and they spend more time just hanging out with them. Then finally, after a while, you write the charge up, and then you add another 2 or 3 hours, and then your 100,000 becomes 200,000. Well, for 200,000, you could have hired more police officers. And one of our police reform efforts with one of the villages, there was a cop who was part of the task force, who was great and shared things with us I would not have known. And he said, look, I was on midnight shifts all the time for X number of years, nothing but midnight shifts. He attributes that to him not being married anymore, because he never was home for his wife and kids. Well, nobody should have that. That doesn't make sense. You don't want your pilot working double shifts. You don't want somebody. It just doesn't make sense.
Truck drivers,
bus drivers too. Yeah.
But that comes. But see, here's the problem. Municipalities, they don't put any type of clauses when they negotiate their collective bargaining agreements. See, they just give money and then they just walk away. Other than Joe Spano. Joe Spano is the only commissioner I know that gets things when he negotiates, right? But that's what you're supposed to do. He's old school. That's what you're supposed to do. See, if municipalities negotiate civilian complaint review boards in the next contract, and let's say add an extra 1%, so you get 3 years, 9%. So now you're getting 3 years, 12%. Them police departments will take it. They'll sell their unborn children for 4%. You come on, Damon. For you get a 4%, man. They'll sell their. We have to start. They don't think like that. They don't think out of the box. How do we get these levels of accountability in? You get it when you negotiate your contract. That's when you get it. And if municipalities start going around, and when it's time to negotiate and it's time to get the money, you give something. You give a little extra. You'll get it. They're not going to turn it down. I've been law enforcement 33 years. They're not going to turn it down. Police departments are not going to turn it down.
But then you might not get the vote that you want. You may not get.
They're going to get it. Let me tell you something, bro. Them union presidents are going to get that vote, whether they have a write-in ballot and change the numbers. They're going to get the vote.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about the union. I'm talking about the elected officials may not get backed by the union if you play hardball with the union.
No. It's a fair exchange. No. It's a fair exchange, right? You're getting a little extra. You're getting a little extra. They only care about the money, bro. I've been there 33 years. They will negotiate a contract. Let me tell you what they did. They negotiated one of the worst contracts in the world. But because it was 5 or 6 years, right? They walked around how much money people was going to get, and they retroactive. They didn't even give the contract, right? So nobody cared what was in the contract. And this is what they do. If the union president wants the membership to vote for that contract, he's going to come back and he's going to sell it to them to them, and they're going to go for it. That's the way. I mean, that's the way it worked. But I don't understand how elected officials don't understand that, and then put measures of accountability in the collective bargaining agreement when you're negotiating when you're negotiating money. These are the things you want. You want a certain percentage. We want this. You know, you got to come to the table with a goodie bag. And what are we going to exchange for these things? And you'll get it. It just takes time. It takes negotiation, but you'll get it. And if you put it in the collective bargaining agreement, it's rock solid. Instead of trying to dealing with all this other political stuff, you put it in the collective bargaining agreement, you vote on it, you set it up, and you make it happen. You know, unfortunately, once it goes through, some officers might get a good retro, but then they might go out in the street and get fired the next week. But it is what it is. It's part of accountability. If you're making good money, if you're making more money than the average person, you should be held accountable for that.
The people who make no money are held accountable.
Exactly. 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 So, I mean, we have to look at ways, and politicians can't be scared to look out to think out of the box and bring some candy to the table. You want something, bring some candy to the table. But I've seen so many contracts and so many negotiations throughout Westchester County that the municipalities just give money and don't ask for anything. You know, and then you have offices that cost them millions of dollars in lawsuits. And you don't ask for nothing in exchange. You're doing a disservice to the taxpayers of your city.
Right, but it's not costing them, it's costing the taxpayers.
Exactly. And that's the problem.
Right.
And that they don't care because it's really not their money, but the taxpayers are not educated enough, informed enough to understand that, yeah, when so-and-so officer end up having the city pay $5 million because he punched this guy in the face that was cuffed, that's your money. It ain't his money.
Yeah.
That's your money. That's your money. And then, you know, cities wonder why they ain't got no money the next year. Maybe stop having all these lawsuits.
So maybe there's that other issue. Mayor and I have talked about this. Well, first you have to end legal term qualified immunity, right? Mm-hmm. So you get officers, and to be certified as an officer, maybe you should have insurance, and if you're the kind of person who's a cop who's beating up people over time, before it gets to, well, first of all, there should be discipline involved in that. Maybe you're not in the right job to begin with.
Exactly.
But insurance companies are pretty good at finding out, what the risks are. And they could set an individual's insurance premium a lot higher if he's a guy who's beating people up on a regular basis, getting complaints, versus an officer who's not. And that would be another, deep pocket, and get people thinking that way. Just like, in a car, you have to have a certain amount of insurance. If you're a doctor or a lawyer, it's not absolutely required to have insurance, but you're crazy not to, right? So those are a couple of things that are out, talking points that are out there too, when you're talking about police reform as well. And we did discuss those, in the county task force.
I think it would be very helpful if officers knew that if they were found guilty of misconduct and it cost the municipality money, and I want the municipality to pay the money, but I want them to pay the municipality back. So if I know that, I don't have $5 million and it's going to cost $5 million and the city settles for $5 million, that I now owe the city $5 million. So my pension's going to go to that. They can claw my pension back. If I know that, if the three of us are police officers and you know that I'm out there beating people up, you're not going to let me do that, because you're not going to lose your pension because I'm out of control.
Well, that could be part of the terms of employment. See, because when you swear in, you understand these are your terms of employment. if you're found guilty of violating someone's rights, you're gonna have to pay us back the money that we paid. So that makes them follow the rules and regulations of the department. The rules and regulations of the department are there to save you.
Yep. And
if you follow the rules and regulations, you ain't gonna get in trouble. You're not gonna get in trouble. Even if something happens, God forbid, if you follow those rules and regulations, you are covered
right
by the department.
But you step outside of it,
if you step outside of it, and that's what I was saying, even about having a state law of police accountability, if you violate your training and your department's policy and you end up killing somebody, it's an automatic charge. Because clearly this guy here, Detective Khan, violated policy.
Well, Damon, when a nurse or somebody that's not a nurse, okay, somebody who's a medical technician doesn't follow policy, and when they're trying to put somebody in a gurney and it goes wrong, they charge those people. They didn't intend to hurt the person in the nursing home.
Exactly.
Okay? So and it's a device that needs two people, and you try to do it by yourself. You're trying to help the person, but you didn't do it correctly. They charge those folks, and if somebody dies, they charge you. Okay, so why are we not charging police, who are the only public servants authorized to take somebody's life? Why are they not held to a higher standard, or at least to that same standard? Right. That's all. So, I mean, if you have a teacher that doesn't make sure that a kid has the bus driver doesn't make sure the kids have the belt on,
he's getting charged.
That's right. They're going to say you were negligent, but maybe it's criminal negligence that led to this kid's injury or death, right? And there'll be and that'll be a press conference. There'll be a press release, and they'll be outside, and everybody standing out there. So, but yet we can't do that. Where I think, again, going back to what you said earlier, there has to, at a minimum, be respect for the public. And if people respect the public, then they'll be good politicians. It'll be the best they can be. And nobody's asking for you to be perfect, but you'll do your job and you'll hold people accountable. And if any of us do anything, the one thing we know that's going to happen is we expect to be held accountable.
Exactly.
That's it. Nobody's going to let you turn around and say, "Oh, I thought that someone was reaching for a gun, so I shot them." That's not. You're going to have a problem. And by the way, if you do that, I think that the AG is going to not be so concerned about whether they win the case. The excuse for not charging you won't be that we weren't sure we could win beyond a reasonable doubt, because you're never sure you can win beyond a reasonable doubt, because you lose sometimes. Okay, but you charge those folks. They charge all kinds of people that they don't know that they can convict. You're a member of a well-known street gang, and this person had guns, and this person had drugs, and you were at the card game, so therefore you're part of the guns and the drugs, and we're going to charge you all, and you're going to sit in jail till we figure it out, right? So somehow it's this inability to apply that same vigor when it's time to prosecute a police officer that engaged in plausibly misconduct.
Right. Well, fellas, I want to thank y'all, man. It's we went over. Oh man, we went.
We're never gonna stop talking. So you can't end it by.
I gotta call it a day.
You got two lawyers here, I
gotta call it a day, man. We went over. Oh, AJ just slid out and left.
We forgive him though. And tell him happy anniversary.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to thank y'all, man. I want to thank y'all for coming on, man, having this discussion. I hope people that watched on all the different platforms, man, X, YouTube, Facebook, I hope everybody that watched learned something and support our brother, man, and his family, the family of Gerald Garris out in New Rochelle. Damon Maher, how can they reach you if they want to reach you? Oh, you're on mute again. You're on mute.
Let me write it in the chat here, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I got the wrong thing. DMAHER, DMAHER at Levy Davis, LEVYDAVIS.com. DMAHER at LevyDavis.com.
All right, great. Mayo, people want to reach you. They need, they might need your services. how can they reach out to you, brother?
Hopefully you never need my services, but the best way is to call me 914-224-3086. Yeah.
Great. And I want to thank y'all brothers again, man. And we'll, I get tired of talking about this, but we have to continue to talk about it to keep people informed, man. And I thank you guys for coming on, and have a good night and be safe and enjoy your week, man. Peace out, everybody.
Thanks for always speaking truth to power.
Thank you. Thank you.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. Today, look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it.